Here is the latest Higher Summits forecast brought to you by our friends at the Mount Washington Observatory.
Weather above treeline in the White Mountains is often wildly different than at our trailheads. Before you hike, check the Higher Summits forecast at mountwashington.org. Weather observers working at the nonprofit Mount Washington Observatory write this elevation-based forecast every morning and afternoon. Search and rescue teams, avalanche experts, and backcountry guides all rely on the Higher Summits forecast to anticipate weather conditions above treeline. You should too. Go to mountwashington.org or text forecast to 603-356-2137.
What's up, everybody? Nick here with your forecast for the weekend of July 26th, 2025. Friday, mostly in the clouds under mostly cloudy skies with scattered rain showers and isolated thunderstorms. Afternoon thunderstorms could produce heavy rainfall, small hail, and sudden, strong winds. High falling to around 50 degrees. Wind west shifting northwest at 50 to 70 miles per hour with gusts up to 80 miles per hour, decreasing to 30 to 45 miles per hour. Higher gusts possible with thunderstorm activity. Friday night, mostly in the clouds trending towards clearing under decreasingly cloudy skies. Chance of evening rain showers. Low, mid-40s. Wind northwest shifting north at 30 to 45 miles per hour, decreasing to 20 to 35 miles per hour. Wind chill falling to 30 to 40 above. Saturday, in the clear under mostly sunny skies. High, lower 50s. Wind north shifting west at 20 to 35 miles per hour, decreasing to 5 to 20 miles per hour, and possibly becoming light and variable at times. So it's looking good for Saturday. Hopefully the trend continues into Sunday. Have a great weekend, happy hiking, and stay safe out there.
Broadcasting from the Woodpecker Studio in the great Live Free or Die state of New Hampshire. Welcome to the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast, where we discuss all things related to hiking and search and rescue in the White Mountains of New Hampshire and beyond. Here are your hosts, Mike and Nick.
And then I hit record here. So, all right, welcome, Peter and Jake. You guys will get to see how we make this dumb podcast. So, welcome.
Good to be here.
Good to be here.
Welcome, guys.
Excellent. All right, Nick. So, you've been out wandering and hiking quite a bit, but I think you want to start the show off with. Do we want to do the intro, or do you want to do the music minute first?
I'll do the music minute first. So, we're going to drop into a quick segment here. I caught up with Stomp, who's been mysterious, but still coming back on the podcast. And we're very excited to announce, and we're going to drop at the end of this episode. Don't shut things off when we say goodbye. But we're going to drop the cover of Heart Sun that we've been working on for probably about a year and a half. So me, Stomp, and his daughter, Evie, worked on this. We hope everybody enjoys it. And we'll hop into that segment really quick here. All right, so we've got Stomp back again for our music minute this week.
At the music minute.
Yeah,
the 15-minute long minute.
Sometimes much longer than a minute music minute.
Yeah.
We've got sort of a special edition this week, and we'll drop this track at the end of the episode, but the long awaited, maybe not long awaited because nobody really knew about it, or long talked about, long worked on, whatever you want to call it, cover that we've been working on of Hard Sun is finally done. It sounds fantastic. You did an amazing job throwing everything together. We had a blast doing it all. So I figured this Music Minute, we'd talk about it a little bit before showing it later on the podcast.
Yeah. So how long has it been? We started, you say it's a year and a half.
I was trying to think back. I don't know if those are actually the tracks we used, but the first tracks that I sent you, and I just know because I was looking on like the timestamps of when I took them, but the tracks that I sang to Hard Sun, which was like, I just actually put the track into Logic and sang to it and then just sent you the recordings. That was like before Thanksgiving of November 23, basically. So
okay, yeah. So I worked off of just a rough track. I used Acid to put together a few basic loops to work with, to arrange it and come up with some basic formula, roughly based on the song. I remember the first like real session though. It was like a late winter storm, and there was like a foot of snow. Right, we were in like this snow belt, and I was actually nervous that you could actually make it. So didn't I pick you up?
You did, yeah.
Yeah.
It was like a day in March, and it was funny because I remember this too, like a little bit of a side story, but we were actually supposed to go up to hang out with my cousin at J Peak. I think like going into that week when we were getting blasted with snow, it was like in March or something, and we all got norovirus like the week before, so we couldn't go. So I was like, I want to get out and hike something the following weekend, and I remember I did Pemi and like had the golden ticket privilege of breaking out Indian Head Pemi, and then met you. But yeah, you have the Outback, right? And I was like, you still were like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if you're going to be able to make it up here. And I was definitely not feeling super adventurous. I'm like, if you want to come down and I think you picked me up like near the Dunkin' or something. And,
dude, it was gnarly.
Like a 4-wheel drive ride up back to your the Woodpecker studio.
Yeah, that was wild because all the neighbors were stuck and I barely got out, and downtown Campton was fine, basically. Yeah. So then we laid down your actual vocals and acoustic guitar that day.
Yep.
And that took, several years to edit.
Yeah, apparently.
But I actually twiddled around with trying to add in maybe a verse or two of myself doing it, like alternating verses. Yeah. But then I just came back to you just doing the whole thing. It was just more consistent. And that lead vocal track that you laid down was the one that just went through the entire recording over the last year and a half. It never changed. It just kept on sort of getting tweaked and better.
It stood the test of time, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, it's funny. Then I put it on the shelf and never touched it for months. And then I went back to it and I found this old loop. So this producer that's out in LA, his name is Anthony Resta. Back in the day, I did a project for him. He had like terabytes of just drum tracks and all kinds of crazy keyboard modulation loops and things like that. Uncut, raw, unedited. And I actually started a project with him to make sort of like a loop project, just a loop. People could buy his loops, use the loops for their projects, like licensing. And back in the day, that was a pretty popular thing. You could buy loops from your favorite artists and whatever, couple gig of loops. And I found this one loop that was sort of overdriven and distorted. And that's what sort of put the gas on the whole project again, because it works so well. And I just wanted to give a shout out to Anthony because he actually was like, yeah, man, use it. So that was sort
awesome.
of the root. The root foundation of the music is an Anthony Resta loop, which is an actual sample that he just messed around with EQ and compression and stuff like that.
That's neat. I actually didn't know that until you just mentioned that. I remember you being like, initially when you showed it to me, you're like, oh, it's sort of along the lines of like the Slasher beer drop. Like it's kind of got that sort of like, I guess, echoey sort of thing going on.
Yeah.
I like that loop really better. I remember you kind of describing it that, and then you sent it to me and I'm like, yeah, I like how that feels. Cause it already feels way different than the actual song, which is what we were going for.
Yeah. A Hard Sun. I mean, that song the original is not a hard version. So I wanted to make like an actual hard sun, like something gritty. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, wicked funny. So yeah, that worked out pretty well. What else on that?
The other cool thing, I was going to say, I remember when you figured out that the time it was in is printed on the album cover, right? Or that was the theory? When we were trying to figure out...
Roughly. Yeah,
something like that.
There's a couple resources out there, but they sort of varied a bit. I actually forget what tempo it is at the moment, but the key was always the killer. I still don't know what key it is. It's like G sharp, major, minor. I have no idea.
I think it's like A sharp. We're just making it. It's funny because we did the whole song, but this just proves that you don't necessarily need to know that to actually make a song. But yeah, I remember even when I went back to your house, we don't have to jump that far ahead yet, but when I was trying to do like guitar leads and stuff to it, like I just couldn't figure it out to try to riff off. Like some stuff came through, like I think just following like sort of the melodies and stuff, but it was really hard to just do like some sort of bluesy riff or something. Like it just sounded off a lot of it, and I remember being slightly frustrated, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly what key it is. We could easily Google it, but I like the mystery of it.
I hate to say it, but like on some of the vocal stuff, not necessarily yours or anybody's in particular, but maybe like certain notes or lines, I tried to do auto tune to make a something that's maybe sharp or flat, right on the money. Yeah. And even the auto tune plugs couldn't really figure out the key. So
that's funny.
There was no mode that really nailed what key that's in, which is very interesting.
I did play in, I think the guitar part is in drop D. I did use that for tuning, I think eventually when we went back and redid it again, or maybe the electric guitar was in drop D and then the acoustic wasn't.
Huh, that's really interesting.
We did do that. But it's like, I think the actual tuning of it, when I know like it was basically like drop D, and I think I had a capo on the first, this is like really for people who care about how we played it, but with a capo on the first fret, I think for the acoustic, and then it was just like basically drop D, and then I actually tuned it up a half step for the electric and didn't have a capo on it.
Yeah.
So
it's really interesting.
You got that nice chuggy electric guitar with the drop D string there.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. That moves us towards that second session when you came over with the electric and laid down pretty much just all these tracks. About 35 feet away, we put his amp in a second bathroom that we have, shut the door, and cranked it as loud as we possibly could, and just recorded a boatload of guitar stuff, electric based. And again, that prolonged the editing process for another few months, just rifling through all that information. It's incredible.
The crap out of the cats. It's the loud guitar guy. Why is he coming back again?
Oh yeah. So yeah, it's been great.
I was going to say but to that point, all that feedback you hear in the track is completely natural feedback. That is my guitar amp, my little Fender I had completely cranked to the absolute maximum with gain and overdrive.
Yeah. The one thing I wish the song had was real bass. You can hear synth bass sort of plodding along here and there. And then for the last two choruses and the outro, you hear a sub bass that kicks in the final master. Cool. It's all right. I love real bass though, but I just didn't have anybody available to lay down a bass track. And I don't have a bass anymore at the moment, which is breaking my heart.
No, neither do I. And I the people I do know that play bass, I felt bad reaching out to them because I just hadn't reached out to them in a while, and it feels weird to reach. And it is kind of just not the nicest thing to be like, hey, how's it going? I haven't talked to you in like 5 years. Can I borrow your bass real quick, please? I also don't have a bass amp either, and I don't think they do anymore. So
that's too funny.
I think you did a great job with the synth bass and stuff. So
I tried. Yeah. I honestly, I don't think it necessarily misses anything without a moving bass part, but what was that Prince song? There's one Prince song that Prince decided to drop the bass, and that's stuck with me ever since. Okay. And When Doves Cry, he decided he had like writer's block on this one song for ages, and then came back to the studio, dropped the bass, and that's what you hear today, no bass. And it's sort of unheard of. It's pretty brave. Some songs you could get away with it, but others you really need it.
Yeah, I always think of like Jack White Stripes kind of not having that. I mean, if you have a good drummer though, you really don't, or I should say not even a good one, but you need one that if they play in the right spots. Cause I think even like the studio version of Hard Sun, like I don't even think there's a bass in that, or if there is, it's really subtle. I think it's just, you have a really strong kick drum in there that's kind of snapping and keeping that kind of flowing through it.
Yeah, true.
Fills in.
Absolutely. So, I think we were up to like maybe 50 tracks or so. Well, probably like 40 tracks when you came over finally to do harmonies. Yeah. And we were planning on having my daughter come over at the same time, but she got strep throat.
How dare her get strep throat when we were supposed to do that?
Yeah. But that was a fun session too, man, because you nailed it.
Yeah.
You added that. We were trying to go for, I don't know, I was watching a bunch of like Lady Gaga and 21 Pilots producer videos, and they have this thing where they multi-layer almost everything. It's like a ukulele could have 30 tracks that are just laid upon each other, and they do it for the vocals too. So this is the first time that we got to really play around with layering vocals. Natural vocals. I think a lot of producers today will actually use the virtual harmonization and just these fake choruses to make those dense chorus layers. But I think it worked out pretty good in the final project.
No, I completely agree. It was a lot of fun that day. And I mean, when we say like laid down a bunch of tracks, like it was a lot of tracks. And there was one moment I wanted to call out in particular where I think I was trying to hit one of the higher harmonies. And I think Stomp almost saw me explode actually in his studio and just realized I just couldn't do it. And even some of those parts, like I was reaching for what I could do.
And it's still raining down on me. That line. Exactly. Yeah.
And it's still raining down on me.
Yeah, that was absolutely impossible. Yeah. Even falsetto was like, no, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
And neither did Eddie. Eddie couldn't hit that either. He doesn't hit that note that we envisioned.
It makes me feel better.
Oh, yeah.
And you had some great harmonies too that day.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I had some. Yeah. Actually, I had some ideas that came out for the outro, just da 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 da, all that type of stuff. And finally, when Evie came over, my daughter, she actually mimicked some of those, but also came up with variations on her own that you can hear really subtle panned hard left and right in the middle choruses. And then on the outro, you hear her doing that repeating up and down line, just harmonizing in the background. She really finished the job up pretty well, I think. It was nice.
She did awesome. Her voice is fantastic. I really like the part that stuck out to me the first time I listened to it the most is when that bridge part where it's just sort of that vocal line. Da, 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 da. Like that part, like I love how she has that line that rises up as I'm fading out, and she comes in like like not doing. We can't sing. I know. I just feel weird singing into a podcast. Like, you're like, Jesus, how do they do this? But it's beautiful. I thought it came out nice.
The breakdown bridge too, where it's just you and your acoustic finger style, and I boosted her vocal up on that, so it's like this a duet essentially for that one section. That was pretty cool. So she gave me like 30 tracks when she came over about a month ago, and that was intimidating. It took fire under my butt to actually sit down in front of the computer and try to piece all that together. It was a lot. So ultimately, we had 76 tracks for that. 76.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Crazy.
That's wild. Maybe I'm curious too. We haven't talked about this, but so we did a full version and we did the falsetto, the acapella version.
Right.
Maybe we can do like an acapella version drop later, but the acapella version I think is really cool because it allows you to hear like just this sea of voices literally singing by the end in all those tracks. It's pretty incredible. And I think too, the fact that you put that all like I wouldn't know where to start with that if you just handed me that many vocal tracks to be like, it's too many. I need to delete like half of them.
It's piecemeal, and you just pray for the best pieces to come together. Like out of say 30, maybe call it 10 tracks for one little part. Ultimately, I would tend to fall towards the latter 2 or 3 takes, and then just take those, pan them out somewhere, go to the next harmony, do sort of the same thing, pan them out somewhere. And then generally I would apply like a phaser wrap, because if you put that many tracks together, there's like a warbly phasing that can occur, and that sort of cleans that up. And then, every time you sit down at the computer, your ears burn out after an hour or two. So you just have to put it away, come back to it another day, trying to get something roughly in the ballpark for mastering. And that was like the final step. I really felt this one was good enough to send out to a guy I use out in Seattle, Washington. His name is Dave. Oh my God, his last name is slipping my mind, but it's JP Masters. So Dave mastered this, and mastering just just tightens it up, rounds off harsh frequencies and harmonics that may be harmful to the ear. Just like, oh, why does it sound so muddy? Cleans all that stuff up. And that's the final product. But back to the acapella. The acapella mix is actually a completely different mix. So I actually took the music out.
Okay.
And then balanced all the parts so that they were somewhat level, so you could appreciate them and hear them. So that's the only difference there. Everything's more balanced. Okay. Yeah. And that was mastered as well.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed when you sent them back across. I thought you did a fantastic job, your guy in Seattle. I was kind of because it's funny. It's also weird too. I think I'm more, and it's cool to like, obviously we were just doing this for funsies too, like aside from if people enjoy it, but it was cool to like show people. A couple of people I showed initially, like my buddy Nate, who was a drummer in a band I played in and stuff. And like he listened to it, he's like, dude, this sounds legit. Because it's funny. I feel like you lose sight of that sometimes when we had been, and especially you've been mixing it, but you lose sight of like, it's our thing. So you kind of lose, I guess, the ability to hear it like you're hearing it for the first time, sort of like how other people would perceive it. So it was cool to see people are like excited, like, oh, like this sounds really good. Because I almost always get to the point, like, does it sound really? I'm like, I really like it, but like, will other people like it, or are they just gonna think it's like, what have you guys been doing for the past couple months? But it was exciting when you sent me that final master. I was like, this is awesome, and it's been really cool too. Just in the internet age. And like with tracks and stuff, being able to just listen to this stuff, like we were just kind of using, I guess, Google Drive and like throwing up different tracks to each other, or like you were just basically showing me the entire way, like every step of kind of what it was sounding like, which was really neat. Yeah,
it's a neat progression, but it definitely got the fire under me to start doing more production and stuff like that. So I appreciate you working with me and coming out with this pretty cool piece. It's been fun.
And likewise, I feel like it helps to have something to like work on. And like, I think musically for me, like I'll pick up guitar and sort of learn cover songs that kind of get stuck in my head. And that's usually kind of what I do nowadays. So it was cool to like have something to be like, oh, I'm going to like mess around and like work on, like, I don't know how many times I sang Hard Sun before singing you over the tracks, but it was like, I listened to the song a ton before, but like actually trying to sing to it. I think I did maybe a little bit too. Looking back, the only one thing I might change about my vocals, I'm happy with them, but I was tried to be Eddie Veddery, which is kind of in the initial vocal verse. And then the upper higher tracks are sure when I was harmonizing, I think I was probably just more not trying to do that. But my buddy Nate was like, I think you make a good Eddie Vedder. I was like, thanks.
Eddie Veddery.
Eddie Veddery.
Eddie Veddery. I like Eddie it. Veddery. So that's cool. I hope everybody enjoys it. And I do have a couple new tracks coming up, but it's all EDM. I'm just looking for a hook.
Yeah. Well, when you get one, send it over to me, because I definitely will do vocals for you. Yeah, stuff.
absolutely.
I've been on that Odessa kick, and I don't know, we might have to find this one really well, so we might have to find something else that we can release in like 3 years.
Right. Maybe 6 months. Maybe now that we know how to do it.
Tighten the timeline a little bit.
Yeah, so it's up on Spotify too, which is a miracle. They actually license it, because we figured we'd never be able to release this to the light of day, but it's up there, which is a nice resource. It's actually everywhere. Apple iTunes, everywhere now.
Oh, it's on everything now?
Oh,
under Stomp Machine, right?
Well, people are looking for up on Spotify, that's what it is.
Okay.
But I guess it would be Stomp Machine on the other platforms, but I found a distributor that will distribute it to multiple platforms, so it should be out there.
Excellent.
Yeah, 20 or 30 different places, but
all right. We can look and plug it, but yeah, it was a lot of fun, and hopefully everybody enjoys it. We'll drop it at the end of this podcast episode, so don't turn it off once you hear Mike and everybody else say goodbye, because there's going to be some hard sun. It's not just going to go immediately to the outro.
Right.
That's what my plan is anyways. And,
all right, Slasher family. Nice to chat again. See you around.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
All right, Nick. So, Nick, explain to, and you probably covered this a little bit with something like a year and a half. Like, how long will you have to bake this cake to get it ready?
So technically, when I first sent him tracks, vocal tracks to Hard Sun, was actually back in like early November of 23. So we went over those, but like some of those bass tracks were like recorded then. And then I think around March of 24 is a lot of the tracks you hear in that. And so it was a long work in progress of Stomp kind of starting to work on, and then us kind of getting caught up with other things and then coming back to it. I think we did about 3 or 4 sessions together at the Woodpecker Studio North, something like that. So it took a while to come together, but I was glad it came out really well.
And what do we think the commercial viability of this? Is this going to take over TikTok, or is this going to is this more of a indie angsty type of thing where it's not going to go commercial? What are the hopes and dreams for it?
I think we just want people to hopefully enjoy it and download it. And I got to double check on this too, and maybe we can throw it in the show notes retroactively, or I'll insert something. But Stomp basically paid a distribution company for it. So right now you can find it like on Spotify and stuff. Okay. They more or less, the company you worked with will actually pay the copyright fee on it for the year. So we're like free to use it and not get sued and all that good stuff, which is fun because we actually were working on this without a completely clear idea on how we were going to actually show it to people when it was done, which was kind of fun. We figured we'd put it in the podcast either way and kind of maybe fly caution to the wind to a degree.
Right. Yeah, just get us shut down for copyright violation.
No big deal. Right.
Awesome.
But yeah, it sounds like it should be up on like Apple Music and all those places, Spotify and stuff under Stomp Machine.
Excellent.
So cool stuff.
Well, we'll put that in the show notes, and then we'll listen to it at the very end.
Awesome.
And then just continuing on with the music moment, the king of the son of Satan, Ozzy Osbourne, is down in hell right now, likely biting the head of a bat off in front of the rest of the people that are in hell right at this point. So rest in peace, Ozzy Osbourne. I think he's 76 years old. Jake, I feel like this is like something you should maybe make some commentary on.
He's ready.
Ozzy was or Black Sabbath, actually. I remember when I was probably 10 or 12, me and my brother going through my dad's tapes. My dad had a bootleg from when he was in Vietnam of Master of Puppets, and that got my brother started on the musical career that he has, and it's always just been a very influential musician in my life, in his life. Rest in peace, Ozzy.
Rest in peace, Ozzy.
Yep, rest in peace. He had a nice second career as a reality TV show star, and we're losing a lot of the great ones here. So, but yeah, we'll put some links on if you want to check out any good Ozzy. I feel like anybody that grew up in the early '80s, they probably had some friends that had Randy Rhoads patches on their denim jackets, and they would get their guitar and learn how to play Crazy Train. It was like one of the first riffs that you learned. I mean, even I learned how to play Crazy Train at one point.
Oh man, I was sending lyrics to No More Tears back and forth with my buddy Cordero at work today after we found out, which was kind of funny. Yeah, finding some fun Ozzy memes.
Yep, a lot of metalheads are sad today. But anyway, welcome to episode 203 of the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast. This week we are joined by friends of the show, Peter Clemons and Jake Dalbec. Peter is the rarest of hikers, having just completed his White Mountain Redline. This entails hiking all the trails listed in the White Mountain Guide. Is it 31? Is it edition 31 that you did, Peter?
Edition 31, yeah.
31. So, all right. So, and what are we up to right now in editions? 32, 33?
31. I think the 32nd is scheduled to come out like 2027. I saw a post from Steve Smith out there.
Okay.
So,
all right. So Peter's going to break down his perspective on this accomplishment, and I guess we'll find out from him if he's going to do it all over again for episode edition 32. I kind of doubt it. And then Jake is going to join. He's going to add some color. He acted as Peter's primary partner on the more. So Peter would reach out to us and say, "I want to hike this random trail," and we would all say no, except for Jake. So Jake's here to talk about some of the more obscure sections of the Red Line, and plus he'll talk a little bit about his hiking escapades. Plus, we'll break down our recent 3-night backpacking adventure on the Kilkenney Ridge, which was the completion of Peter's Red Line. And then we've got some news about New Hampshire SAR teams are recognized by Governor Ayotte. We've got tips for finding moose, which we didn't find any on our Kilkenney trip. There's a new Direttissima fastest known time by Andrew Drummond. And then we've got some recent search and rescue news, including a fatality on Mount Washington and a successful rescue of 3 teenagers on Camels Hump in Vermont. And then breaking news, Nick, I just threw in a history segment about Darby Field. We can't talk about Darby Field enough. So I'm Mike.
And I'm Nick.
Let's get started.
Let's get started!
Excellent. So let's start off with our friend Christina and hear from her from Wild Raven Endurance Coaching.
Hi, I'm Christina from Wild Raven Endurance Coaching. I work with athletes of all levels, from hikers to triathletes, helping you reach your goals with personalized guidance. With years of experience hiking, mountain biking, and trail running across New England, I also have a deep knowledge of the New Hampshire 4,000 footers and the surrounding trails. Whether you're a beginner hiker or a seasoned athlete, I'll guide you towards your goals, reducing injury risk and improving your performance through smart, tailored coaching. Are you looking to transition from hiking to mountain running? I'm here to make that journey easier too. My approach combines strength training, mindfulness, and life balance on and off the trail. Let me help you find more joy in your sport while getting stronger and healthier along the way. Visit www.coaching.christinafolsick.com and start your adventure today.
All right. So, Nick, I guess let's start this off with a couple of the search and rescue stories here. So you paid more attention to the 3 missing children found on Camels Hump. So why don't you do that one, and then I can cover the Mount Washington story.
Sure, that sounds good. So this was kind of an interesting one. 3 kids are back with their families Friday after going missing on Camels Hump Thursday afternoon. So Camels Hump is one of the Vermont 4,000 footers. Pretty good ride from where I live, as most of those Vermont mountains, but beautiful view. It's the only undeveloped mountain out of the 4,000 footers in Vermont that actually is on that list. So it's beautiful peak, highly recommended. Done it a few times. But these kids, basically an 11, 14-year-old and a 12-year-old, were among 9 campers on a 6-night trip with Mad River Path Camp. And they went missing on Thursday on the Long Trail off Duxbury Road in Bolton on Thursday. This would be last Thursday, too. Misha Goffman, the camp director, said he's been guiding wilderness excursions for 40 years, but this is the first time someone has gone missing on any of his excursions. So I guess he had a good track record, but it still seems kind of a little odd that they went missing and kids this young that happened. He kind of said nothing like this has ever happened in his career, and it's the first time it's ever happened. He said the campers were given around 30 minutes to explore a designated area close to the group on Thursday afternoon. When one group did not return, the group with his 3 kids, he said the camp staff began searching and calling out for them. Vermont State Police were contacted around 6:20 p.m. and were assisted by multiple rescue crews, including Camels Hump and Waterbury Backcountry Rescue, Vermont Air National Guard, and the New England Canine Search and Rescue. Search went from Thursday night into Friday morning. Brad Ketover led a team of around 10 people from Camels Hump Backcountry Rescue and said darkness wasn't their only obstacle. He said they were also concerned that there were significant lightning strikes in the area, as well as significant thunder when they were actually hiking looking for the kids, so that's definitely not fun. He said, meanwhile, along the trail, Aiden Emmons said he was asleep in a camping shelter when awoken by rescue crews. They woke me and someone else that I was hiking with, and they were out there for quite a while. Emmons said, we heard them calling their names and searching around and everything. So the search eventually had a happy ending on Friday morning. The crews located the 3 kids who were safe altogether about a half mile from their group around 5:15 a.m. in the morning. Sounded like as darkness approached, they had the common sense to stop moving, to stay where they are, and just sort of generally stay together. So good news. Kind of had a good outcome on this one. This one was just kind of strange. Like even I looked around separately from me in the article we had linked here, but it looked like maybe there was a viewpoint if you're heading southbound from where the trailhead is, kind of on the Long Trail, but to get to the summit of Camels Hump is like a pretty good way. So I'm curious what exactly like these kids were going to try to find and what the counselor was kind of letting them do. It seems like maybe he just wasn't paying attention or something, but I don't know. Yeah,
the tricky part about kids is that they do stuff that you would never predict.
Yeah.
So Peter, you've done multiple like scout excursions. So this is one of these things where you have to bat 1,000. Like you can never like this kid, even though it never happened in 40 years. Like, one time in 40 years is too many times to lose kids like this overnight. But what do you do to make sure that you don't lose your kids, Peter, when you're out there doing these? Like you take them to the hut, but you've done some other excursions. What's your advice for the listeners?
Yeah, I mean, there's always the buddy system that they're supposed to be at least paired up with another scout, right? But that wouldn't have prevented something like this because there was the 3 of them together. But yeah, there's the whole idea of keeping the scout leaders around and just controlling what they're doing. And hopefully if there's enough scout leaders that one would go with them. And if one couldn't go with them, they don't go.
Right. That's it.
Yeah.
So I actually, I did this one time. I did this to a camp counselor type deal. Like, I did Camp Evergreen, which was owned by Jim Luskatoff, who was a former Boston Celtic guy. And they used to have like the gathering every morning. And me and like three people, three other campers decided that we were going to like skip arts and crafts and go wander off in the woods. And then we got lost. And then we found our way back, luckily, like around a little after lunchtime. But the word had already gotten out, Nick, and we got in trouble.
Oh boy,
yeah. So you can't trust these
shenanigans.
Kids. Yeah, you cannot trust these kids at all. But I'm glad that story ended well, Nick.
Yeah, it was. I think I was chatting with some of you where I'm like, this would become national news quickly if they didn't find them. So thankfully they did, and hopefully this camp counselor doesn't have any more tarnishes on his record of 40 years of losing people.
Right. And then this next story here, unfortunately, didn't end as well. So this one was a situation on Mount Washington. So there was a elderly gentleman. I think he was, I want to say, late 70s or so. And as far as I can tell from the news reports, the gentleman's name is William Davis, and he was found on Friday, July 18th around 11 a.m. They located his body. So this was a 3-day search for this man. He had wandered away from the summit of Mount Washington on Wednesday afternoon. Searchers had done an exhaustive search of the western side of the summit on Wednesday and then all day Thursday and weren't able to locate him. But they did actually go back and look at that area, and a crew consisting of fish and game, conservation officers, and volunteers from Androscoggin Valley Search and Rescue arrived on this third day of the search, and they concentrated on the eastern and southern slopes. And apparently the weather had deteriorated the previous 2 days. They had warm temperatures, but it started getting colder, and the wind chill was pretty bad on Wednesday. But the search team split up and were looking at various off-trail locations, and then they've ended up finding Davis's body about 400 feet off of the Lion's Head Trail between Alpine Garden and Tuckerman Ravine. So he made it pretty far down. They had utilized an Army National Guard Black Hawk helicopter that was on a training mission to arrive with to help with the search and then also the recovery. The conditions at the day that they found him were heavy winds and cloud cover, but there was a window of opportunity around 1 p.m. So there's no cause of death at this point, but it looks like he had suffered a significant fall from a steep rocky slope. So we'll see, I guess, when the news comes out. He was not a hiker. He had no map, and it sounds like he had wandered off in the summit. So my understanding on this one is that he came up on the COG with a tour group, was part of that tour group. I think that they have, an hour and a half to be up on the summit to enjoy and explore around. Nobody's babysitting anybody. I mean, these are adults. And when it came time to reconvene to go back down on the COG, the group realized that he was missing, and I think that almost immediately they realized he was missing, and they enacted a search. There was a news article that had indicated they saw a trail cam with him, but I think that was probably pretty close to the summit. It looks like, the Mount Washington is a weird place, and you guys tell me if this is your experience or not. But like, I've been up there when it's crazy crowded, and then all of a sudden you step off down into you head into Tuckerman, or you're heading to Lion's Head, or you go down Crawford Path, and within like 5 minutes or so, it's like all of a sudden like it's silent, and you can feel like you're by yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So people are kind of like, how could this happen? Mount Washington's so busy. How could they have missed him? But like, I think it's just as likely that, he wandered off, probably went down those stairs, the wooden stairs that take you to the top of Tuckerman Ravine Trail, and then made his way down. That trail is not easy to follow. He probably went off trail very quickly, and he's rock hopping along these boulders, or who knows what he's doing. There may have been dementia, something. And then he ends up falling. He's probably My guess is that the reason they couldn't find him that easily is he's probably in between some of those rock boulders. I mean, it's just big, giant rock boulders all the way from the summit down to where Lion's Head is. So it's a tough story.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know, too, if anybody saw him wandering off, like, to your point, Mike, with how many people do end up at the summit, like, unless it was the people that were with him that noticed he was wandering off. Like, I don't think anybody, like, the staff or someone's going to call out and be like, hey, like, there's this guy wandering or walking down. Like, if he was on a trail, like, they might have just thought he was a hiker that didn't have a pack or something like that, and maybe he knew what he was doing and they just weren't concerned. Yeah,
and you see it all the time where people will be on the summit and they're up there, they either drove or they took the cog up, and they do walk down a little ways. Like, they want to get out of the crowd. They want to get a little view. It's very possible that the guy wandered around in an area where, like, there's no other humans around, and he just started making his way down. I know me personally, like, if I come up Lion's Head or Tuckerman, like, I'm at the point now where I don't go up that cone. I basically curve around and hit Crawford Path and go up the back way.
Okay.
So a lot of hikers do that. So I could definitely see how he could end up going missing.
Yeah, sad story.
Yep. Yeah, sad story. So condolences to the family, and we'll keep an eye on it and see what the actual cause of death is. It sounds like it's probably going to be like blunt force trauma or something, but we'll see. And also condolences to, the thoughts to the recovery team that had to go out there, and all the people that were, like, spending the last couple of days looking for him. I'm sure that the park staff and other stakeholders at the summit were worried sick about him as well. So tough way to end that search. But on a better note, Nick, there was a nice ceremony where search and rescue and Fish and Game got recognized by the governor of New Hampshire, and they had a meeting at Bretton Woods, and they recognized New Hampshire Fish and Game, the Army National Guard, and search and rescue teams across the state for their incredible work. And the governor had said that they represent the best of New Hampshire, and there's a bunch of great photos of all the different stakeholders, and there was some speeches, and there was some canine crews there, and even some friends that we know were on there. So good for everybody that's involved, and it's nice to see that the governor is recognizing everybody for their hard work.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really cool to see. It looks like it was a beautiful ceremony back on July 9th, especially where they are at the Omni Resort. It looks gorgeous. It looks like basically the back of Mount Washington kind of behind them. Beautiful spot.
Right. So that'd be a nice spot for you to take your wife, Nick, someday.
One day, I've looked at the prices of those rooms sometimes. I'm like, I don't know. We'll get there eventually.
Right, well, send us in some coffee so Nick can take his wife to the Omni.
Yes,
so,
please.
Have you, Peter, Jake, you guys been there before?
I have not.
Nor I. I've driven by it, taken pictures of it, but from the outside.
Too.
Yeah, it looks nice.
We'd have to do like a guy's trip there. We'll get spa package and go there. So
that'd be different.
All right. So we've got a couple of other New Hampshire stories here, Nick. So why don't you? So there's a story. This guy ran the entire length of New Hampshire. I've done this. I'm not impressed. I've sort of done this. I did Reach the Beach, but that was like with 12 other people. But this guy did it from, he ran the length of New Hampshire from Pittsburgh, New Hampshire, all the way down to Nashua.
Yeah, so we got man previously bedridden for 2 years completes record-setting run across length of New Hampshire. So the man's name was Justin D. Flumeri, and he basically was a 36-year-old from Merrimack that ended up running from New Hampshire's Canadian border all the way to the Massachusetts border. So 197 miles, or the equivalent of almost 8 marathons, and he did it in less than 5 days. And actually, Flumeri corrects him here, but says technically it was 4 days, 4 hours, and 56 minutes. And it was faster than anybody has ever done it in state history. So it sounds like he had a pretty good time. It seems like a pretty active guy. And it sounds like at one point he basically was involved in a surgery. They had to do a lumbar puncture because they thought I had blood around my brain. And what happened was they put a hole in my spine and I started leaking cerebrospinal fluid. And that basically left him bedridden for 2 years, and then another recovery of 2 years after that. So when he was finally back on his feet, he got into running. And it says in 2 years, he's done 200 races. and he decided to take on this challenge running the length of New Hampshire from Pittsburgh to Nashua. And it sounds like he did have a crew of 4 people helping him along the way. And he did this to raise money for their Heather Abbott Foundation, which provides custom prostheses. Anybody know how to pronounce that?
Yeah, prosthetics
to those who have lost limbs. Thank you, Mike. Dave Flumeri ran more than 40 miles a day and did it during the first week of summers with temperatures hitting the 80s and 90s. That was my first thought, is that it's been a pretty warm stretch to be out there running that kind of distance per day. So good for him. And not a big surprise here, but he said the toughest part was the White Mountains. He said it was so hard, it was extremely hot, and the elevation was never ending. And just kind of mentions that kind of some inspiring stuff here, and mentioned that the difficulty of the route reinforced what he's learned firsthand, is that when life gets hard, just keep on going. So
yeah,
pretty cool story here.
His route here, Nick, but it looks like I'm assuming he did some kind of a parallel to 93 for most of the way. It seems like, because he didn't cut over because he ended up in Nashua, so must be kind of running through the associated north-south roads close to 93.
Yeah. He said he wants to eat a bunch of pizza and relax for a little bit and think about his next race now.
Right.
Which sounds pretty good.
Typical runner. He's got terrible diet because he's running 40 miles a day, but good for him.
Yeah.
All right. So this next article here is, I think maybe Stomper. I don't know. Maybe you pulled this.
I actually pulled this one.
Okay.
So this is from the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, which I'm just on their mailing list. And I thought this was pretty cool. We'll link the article. But just basically is about moose watching in Maine, which also applies to kind of New Hampshire as far as like the times where you might see them and kind of the habitats they like. They are crepuscular animals, which means that they're most active at dawn and dusk, which I think probably a lot of people know and associate moose sort of with those times. Talks about kind of how they like swampland and different types of plants that they like to eat and kind of where you see them. And this kind of led me a little bit to kind of investigate basically the moose population kind of in New Hampshire. So Maine has way more moose than New Hampshire, which I think a lot of people might know, like on the magnitude of thousands more. But currently, New Hampshire is estimated to have a population of about 3,000 to 4,000 moose, which is actually in decline since the 1990s due to multiple factors, including deforestation, climate change, etc. Mostly basically lack of habitat seems to be the biggest factor. And I was actually surprised to know that there was actually one point in the 1800s where New Hampshire had been cleared so much for farmland and even back into logging that there was actually only an estimated dozen or so moose that actually lived in New Hampshire. So it's kind of crazy to think they've rebounded that much since. So their populations fluctuate over the years. But yeah, if you're curious about where to see moose and when to see moose and what they like and all that interesting stuff that I don't have enough time to go into, then check out the article.
Yeah. As far as I can tell, like in the summer, you see them in the water when it's hot. And then in the fall, they head up into they like new trees and shrubs and stuff. And then I don't know what they do in the winter. They softwood or something.
Yeah, and they need a lot of land too to be able to live on. It's not like they can live on like an acre of land with trees on it and stuff. Like they need a lot of room to graze and frolic, I guess, as it were.
Very good. So yeah, we certainly saw them frolicking all over the Kilkenney. We saw a lot of moose poop, but we didn't see
pooping all over the Kilkenney Range.
Yeah.
So all right, well that's everything that you want to know about moose here. And then one other thing, a couple of other things here. So Andrew Drummond, Andrew's been on the show here before. He set a new fastest known time for the unsupported Direttissima. So it looks like it was 4 days, 22 hours, and 43 minutes. He finished at 3:31 a.m. in the morning, I guess a day faster than 2016, and after only making it halfway last summer. So I don't have a link in the show notes on the fastest known time page.
Yeah, it was
put it in there.
Yeah, it was on Instagram. I should have looked at that.
That's fine.
I can throw it up. Yeah.
So, but that's pretty impressive. I feel like the Direttissima is that's a pretty well challenged fastest known time. So it holds pretty well, but to beat that is pretty good.
Yeah, and I think unsupported is also the wild factor. Like, I'd like to know kind of his strategies for I imagine he was dropping food different places, but 231 miles and 86,000 feet of elevation gain.
That's crazy.
That is absolutely wild.
That is crazy. So, and I'm trying to think here. Unsupported. So that is the overall fastest time here. So it looks like he beat Will Peterson So yeah, those are impressive times. He also holds the supported on the self-powered side here. So very.
I thought it was interesting too. And again, like maybe I can try to find that link on Instagram to his post, or just look him up. He's a SR_Drummond on Instagram. But he was mentioning that, yeah, he attempted it last year and he barely made it halfway, which I think is funny for a guy that like crushed it and got the fastest known time this year and has done it multiple times. But I guess it just shows that he kind of attributed it to maybe just a lack of training and how he kind of fueled himself as opposed to what he'd done in the past. But it's kind of interesting to me that you can kind of, I guess, miss the mark that much and then like totally blow your old time out of the water the next year. So kudos and congratulations. Right, super impressive.
Yeah, and I can't remember what the difference is between self-powered and standard. I'll look at the notes here and see if I can figure that out. But the standard supported record is 3 days, 5 hours, and 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So that was done.
Maybe taking car rides between trailhead portions of that rather than road walking.
Might be, yeah.
Could be self-powered versus, yeah.
So very impressive. I don't think I'll be breaking any fastest known times on that course. So good. Congratulations, Andrew.
Yeah, congrats.
And then this is another one, Nick, where I think you're going to have to cover. This is I got this from a bunch of people, but there's everyone's very excited about a new landslide in Adirondack. The Adirondack. So what is this all about, Nick?
So yeah, there was a couple different landslides that occurred, and we'll link the article in here. But the biggest deal, and the pictures of this are absolutely wild if you've been through Avalanche Pass. So Avalanche Pass in the Adirondack High Peak sits between more or less the McIntyre Range with Algonquin, Wright, Iroquois, and Mount Colden, and then and Mount Avalanche. So Avalanche Pass technically is right between Avalanche Mountain and Mount Colden. But it looks more or less, from what I can tell from the pictures, that a whole chunk of Mount Colden just basically slid down and knocked out a couple mile section of trail that's closed now. So Avalanche Pass is a beautiful little area with Avalanche Lake in the Adirondacks. It's got some boardwalks that go sort of along the body of water drilled into the rock called the Hitch Up Matildas. It's a heavily photographed spot, heavily traveled spot. Also kind of part of the back routes if you're looping over Algonquin or coming back from Marcy or Mount Colden. I've been through here like 2 or 3 times myself. And it was wild to see the pictures of like, it looks like miles and thousands of feet of earth just moved off and slid into it. And right now, the Avalanche Pass trail is closed from the junction of Lake Arnold to the north all the way to basically the south of Avalanche Lake, where you kind of start to go past the end of that and head to Lake Colden. So yeah, that was the biggest one. Like I said, you can kind of check out the articles. There was another slide off the other side of Colden that took out a part of the Lake Arnold trail. But just, I guess, a ton of rain kind of caused it. And I mean, it's kind of funny, like people think of mountains as being static, but they are dynamic things. Like these things do happen. There's a lot of slides, especially out in the Adirondacks, that are from like Hurricane Irene and trails that are still ruined. Like I know when you guys were going through the Dry River kind of area, I know a lot of that got decimated back then. So these things happen and it rains. And luckily it sounds like nobody was out there when it actually happened, because it looks like literally tons and tons of earth just moved, and trees, and it's crazy to look at. I encourage anybody to check out the pictures over there. It's wild. It doesn't look like the same place. It's just all uprooted trees and mud.
Yeah, I was looking at a few of the pictures there, but will they eventually? Is it basically free reign for people to go in there, or
no? It's closed. So the New York Department of Environmental Conservation and the Adirondack Mountain Club pretty much have made it very clear that it's closed. They don't want people going through there. I imagine it's got to be pretty dangerous going through there, especially with the prospect of like if there's more rain, the slides might still not be done sliding completely. So they absolutely do not want anybody going from that Lake Arnold junction where Avalanche Pass Trail starts to the southern end of Avalanche Lake. It's a pretty much no-go zone at this point. And they do mention that any of the mountains that you do want to hike out that way, you can go around Avalanche Pass with different routes. So it's not like it completely closes it out, but it definitely makes it a bit more of a pain in the butt to loop things or get out there.
Damn, I'd really like to go in there and like just like go nuts and just like be the first part. You know, you want to get the first person to climb through that thing.
Just take the slasher patch off your back.
Get arrested. So, all right. Well, we've got a few other search and rescues here. We might as well go through them now, Nick, and then we can get to Jakester and Peter. So, first, there's 3 rescues here in New Hampshire that happened last week. So, on Tuesday, July 15th, there was a 33-year-old hiker from Vermont that was on Fall Mountain in North Walpole, and I guess she was lost and complaining of being faint and nauseous. But this was a third party that called it in. This is a Walpole Police Department, and then an ambulance service, and then 3 conservation officers responded. There was a 2-3 hour search, and one of the conservation officers was checking trails with his ATV, and luckily they were able to find her and assist her down the mountain, and they got her into a fire department UTV, which transported her to an ambulance, and then she was off to Springfield Hospital in Vermont, and I guess she just became disoriented, lost her way, and then made a call to a family member asking for help before a battery died. So the family member called and said, "Can you please come get my family member?" So.
Yeah, I had to look up that one too, where it was. It's almost like straight west of Concord, like on the Vermont border, more or less.
We almost had the same scenario with Steve eats shit from the Cape this weekend.
Oh boy!
So last weekend. So yeah, it's hot out there.
Steve.
One of our friends was not feeling well. So.
Poor Steve.
Yes, Steve's doing well now. We got him down. Nick saved him actually. This next one is 2 hikers rescued on Mount Washington. This was on Tuesday, July 15th. 7 o'clock. This was 2 hikers. This was another one, I think, that it was in Huntington, but it was like I guess apparently there was like these 2 hikers that were in there. They took a wrong turn, it seems like, and they couldn't come back down. So they were moving from these steep ledges, and then it eventually stranded. I try to understand how this could happen. Like, I guess they must have gone off to, they either went straight up the fan or they must have gone like to the left somehow. But I don't really know. You guys haven't, any of you guys been on Huntington?
I have not. But I know you guys all have.
Yeah, Peter has.
Yeah, I've been up there, but
I'm guessing that they got off trail and ended up closer to the climbing face than the actual hiking trail, and kind of got stuck, kind of like those 2 women did on Northwoods Law a few years ago.
So when you say the climbing face, Jake, do you mean like sort of the left, like if you're looking at Huntington, like the left side with like Odell Gully and like, okay, so like the buttress and whatnot. Okay.
Yep. The pinnacle buttress is what I climbed. But yeah, I mean, it's easy to get stuck over there.
Yeah, so they got stuck somewhere, and I guess by 9 o'clock, so they called in around 7. By 9 o'clock, rock climbers from Androscoggin Search and Rescue and Mountain Rescue Service and Fish and Game descended down in a Huntington ravine from Alpine Garden. They reached the hikers by 9:40, got them into climbing harnesses and helmets, and then assisted them up there. That's kind of cool. You got to do some rock climbing. I think that's kind of a cool way to get rescued, going up. So
is it though?
But anyway, yeah, they roped them up and they got up to the steeper sections, and then they got over it's a hop, skip, and a jump over to the Mount Washington Auto Road. So by 10:45, they got them over, and it was 2 hikers from Quebec, and they had read a description of the trail prior to the hike, but they had underestimated the difficulty involved. So Huntington Ravine is considered to be the most difficult hiking trail in the White Mountain. Peter, you've done every mountain, every trail in the White.
Yes.
Besides the what was that trail that you and Jake were talking about that like you just did? The
one up in the Kilkenney
landing it. Besides landing camp
trail,
is Huntington Ravine the hardest trail in the Whites?
I mean, personally, I found the North Trip slide a little bit more hairy, just from an exposure standpoint, and making sure that you're placing every foot correctly than Huntington. But yeah, I mean, you're out there, you're exposed. One wrong step and bad things happen.
Yeah. So anyway, they didn't do their homework, but I guess they learned a little bit about rock climbing, and they are home safe now. And then the only other one was another heat-related injury. This is in, this is an ill hiker that was rescued in Lincoln. So this was, I read about this. This was like a
Pemi Looper.
This was a Pemi Looper with his nephew, and they started early Sunday morning, and they were almost there. They almost, one last climb, they were there, but they were in between Flume and Liberty and Flume, And unfortunately, they've been hiking all day. They started from first mistake. They started with the bonds. That's a big mistake. But when they reached the lower portion of Franconia Ridge on Wednesday evening, the uncle started to suffer from heat-related illness, and they were between Liberty and Flume, and there's no cell phone connection there. So the uncle's deteriorating condition caused the nephew to decide to hike down to Lincoln Woods via Osseo Trail. He's like, "See you later, uncle." I'm like, no, there's no cell connection in Lincoln Woods either, by the way. So the nephew booked it to Osseo Trail and out to Lincoln Woods, and the uncle was trying to make it on his own. He was progressing slowly. So they were out all night, and by 10 a.m., they had run into another hiker who had, I guess, seen him on the trail and realized he was struggling. So they called 911, and the uncle hadn't made it that far. He was still between Liberty and Flume. So there's nothing steeper than a climb up to Mount Flume after you've done a Pemi loop from the bonds previously. I'll tell you that right now. It's not that steep, but it's steep. So anyway, this triggered a rescue crew, and they were able to go up the Flume Slide Trail and intercept the uncle. And based on his condition, they figured that it was the safest route to continue down the Osseo Trail. And it looks like they hiked him out. So they were trying to rehydrate him. His condition was worsening. Probably his body was all done. So they ended up doing a carryout, and they met at Lincoln Woods and started towards the Osseo Trail. An ATV was utilized to help shuttle in gear and rescuers. And then I guess he made it to the awaiting ATV by 6:10. So if I'm doing the math, he started Tuesday morning and then got out of there by like 6:15, 6:45 the next day. So that's, I got to do math now, Jake. I'm doing math. So it's 24 hours plus another 8 hours.
It's a long day.
Like 32 hours or 33 hours, something like that. He was out. It's probably total. So yeah, it's a long time.
Yeah. So, that's tough. I mean, at somewhere along the way, like if he wasn't feeling great, maybe drop down Liberty Springs, like just, I think my advice to people doing a Pemi loop like that, if you're bonking, even if you don't have a car situation, like you can usually, like if you're going to go down Greenleaf, Falling Waters, Old Bridle, Liberty Springs, pretty good chance you can probably get a ride from somebody. So don't stress too much. Like don't push it worrying about getting a ride. Just bail out, and then some hiker will help you, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, the uncle and the nephew have a story to tell. So that's all I got, Nick, for search and rescue stuff. What do you think? Is it going to continue to be busy this summer?
It seems like it has been. I know, like in this last article, kind of called it out too. Is there's been a lot. I mean, not like it never happens. We live in New England, but there's been a lot of fluctuations between some really cold temperatures, and it's also was like hot as hell. Like I know when you guys finished your Kilkenney Ridge Traverse, it was very toasty, and then like I was out this past Friday, and it was like almost below freezing in the morning. So it's been tough.
Let's dive into some White Mountains history, shall we?
I got a question for the panel here. What is the biggest mystery in the White Mountains that you can think of? Does anybody have an answer for that?
Are there mountain lions in the Whites?
Okay, that's a good one. That is a good one. So,
well,
Maura Murray is a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Why does Mike think Cabot Hut is haunted?
Why is Cabot?
I mean, it's pretty obvious to me. But.
Those are all good. All right, I will add all three of those to my list of topics to cover. But for tonight, I did a little bit of digging around. I look at this script and I go, do we have enough? 90% of the time, I'm like, we have way too much to cover. We're not going to do another 2-hour show. It's going to be 90 minutes. And we end up going 2 hours. But I just wanted to throw this in because I found this interesting article by David Govatsky from the 2013 summer version of Appalachia Journal. And I don't know what I did. I just poke through these things and I find interesting stuff for the podcast. So hats off to the Appalachia Journal and David Govatsky. David revisits one of the more interesting mysteries of the White Mountains. And the mystery is Darby Field. and his summit of Mount Washington in 1642. The reason why this is a mystery is because it's just odd. This guy's basically goes out in the wilderness into this dangerous area that's basically controlled by Native Americans, and goes into this area where nobody has visited, no white settlers have visited at all. And he goes there, and there's probably another 100 years, 150 years that go by where nobody actually travels to these mountains. So what is it about that period of time that motivated Darby Field to actually go to Mount Washington, and why was there such a huge period of time where nobody else seemed to have recorded a sense of Mount Washington? So there's a lot of details about the Darby Field ascent in Field and Crag, which the Watermans cover. But David Gavatsky did a little bit more research with some new information from a historian that focuses on the Adirondacks. That historian had found a little bit more information that might add some color to why Darby Field might have been what he might have been looking for by going into the White Mountains so early compared to so many other settlers. So basically what we know is Darby Field was the first recorded European to summit Mount Washington in 1642. This article talks about how new research shed light on Field's possible motivations. It also talks about the route that he may have taken. So traditionally, the Watermans felt like it was likely that Field went up through the Montalban Range and possibly over Boot Spur and then up to Mount Washington via that route. But new research and new writing has indicated that may not be the case. So basically this 2013 article re-examines one of the more interesting journeys that we know about. So Darby Field, he was a settler that was living in the English colonial outpost of Exeter, New Hampshire, which is right outside my door here. And he made what is widely considered to be the first recorded European ascent of Mount Washington. It wasn't exactly a solitary act because he did have some Native American partners with him on the climb, and new information indicates that the motivation behind this may have been commercial ambitions of a settlement company called the Laconia Company, which was an English trading syndicate aiming to map and exploit the interior of New England. Specifically, they feel that the Laconia Company was looking to get a route from New England to Lake Champlain for trading purposes with Native Americans. Very valuable route if they could establish it, because then they could do fur trading, right? So I think that ultimately the French came in through Montreal and got to Lake Champlain in that area. But the thought was that maybe if they could get through Lake Champlain, there had been some earlier excursions going up the Charles River and the Merrimack, where people thought okay, it's likely that the Lake Champlain may be the source of some of these water sources that are coming into Boston and New England, but it didn't pan out. So they think now that potentially Darby's connection with some of the people that were involved in the Laconia Company might have been the indicator that they were looking for Lake Champlain. So Field was not an ordinary settler. He operated a ferry along the Piscataqua River, which is in Portsmouth, and he had strong ties with both the native tribes and English merchants. So he was a likely guy that the Laconia Company would go to say hey, can you do some scouting for us, with the hope of expanding inland trade networks and finding natural resources that they could exploit. And there's also some speculation that Field was joined or supported by other early colonists in additional trips out there. So he went 3 times potentially. And some of the people that he was involved with were traders and scouts connected to a guy named Tom Wiggin. Obviously, we know that name from the trail on Passaconaway, who he was one of the early governors of the Dover settlement. And then there was another figure named Edward Hilton, who was a key figure in New Hampshire's founding. So these men worked in conjunction with the Laconia Company charter, had a strong incentive to better understand the region's geography and especially understand, where the source of the headwaters from the Saco, Androscoggin, and Connecticut River were coming from. And they had thought that it was likely coming from Lake Champlain. So that was their idea, is let's go up the Saco, let's go up the Androscoggin, and the Kilkenney River, and then at the end of those rainbows is going to be Lake Champlain, and that's where they could potentially try to get a trade route going with the Native Americans in the area. So Field, we do have an account from the journey. It was brief but intriguing, so sort of pivoting to a little bit about how he navigated up there. So his first trip was in June of 1642. It was a round trip journey of about 18 days. And he was guided in part by some friends that were Native Americans, likely from the Abenaki or Pennacook nations. They helped him navigate the unfamiliar territory, and he described a treeless summit when he got there with ponds near the top and expansive views. And there was also suggestions that he saw what he believed was the great inland lake to the west, perhaps a mirage or cloud bank, but possibly an attempt to locate Lake Champlain or some other large body of water. So this primary source comes from Governor John Winthrop's journal, which preserved Field's account, and it notes that Field went up the river of the Saco, which makes sense because that was the river that he was familiar with, and over the mountains till he came to the top and passed over 3 hills before he came to the highest where he might see to the Great Lake, and he found that there was much snow and 2 ponds near the top, again, lakes of the clouds. About 3 or 4 yards deep and some rods long. So this passage offers like a rare glimpse into, the early description of the White Mountains. The Watermans indicated that the route that he took was assumed to go up through the Montauban Range and likely like somewhere close to the Tuckerman Ravine. They did indicate that potentially coming up the Saco River Valley as well, just based on speculation. But this new article and the research seems to indicate that it was most likely that he would have stuck to the Saco River watershed. And the theory is that he was climbing up via Ammonoosuc or Dry River region before ascending along the southwest ridge of the mountain. And this would have allowed him to avoid the steep wooded ravines and instead travel along open ridges that would be more easy to follow. So possibly he navigated in via the Dry River and then up into Eisenhower and Monroe and then Lakes of the Clouds, or he might have even gone up Pierce that way. But it seems more likely based on this article here that he was likely came in from that Saco or the Crawford Notch side. So it's a pretty interesting story. And then there was an interesting follow-up in the next article of Appalachia where somebody did write in and indicate that there is a record of 2 brothers who climbed about 30 years after Darby Field. And they were mostly like botanists that had referenced the White Mountains in the higher summits. And it had indicated that, was confirmed that one of the brothers had gone there. So it's likely they both had visited. But other than that, then you fast forward another 100 years to about 1758, and that was when the big expedition with Belknap happened, where they actually named the presidential range. But yeah, big mystery on how long that wait was for them to really explore the White Mountains. So very brave guy, Darby Field, but it looks like he was doing it for hopefully to find a route to Lake Champlain and some big money.
Yeah, it's interesting thinking how far to the west Lake Champlain is from where he was looking in retrospect. And also how big Lake Champlain is. Like, it literally runs the length probably. Like, I would have to think if you went straight west from like where Mount Washington is, like I think you'd hit Champlain or even maybe Lake George at that point, but it's massive. I also wondered if like they got to like the Saco Lake or whatever up in Crawford Notch and he was like, oh crap, this isn't Lake Champlain.
Yeah, they really had no clue. There was literally guys going up the Charles River like, 20, 30 miles thinking like, oh, maybe I'll hit Lake Champlain. Like they had no clue the scale or the scope of the region that they were dealing with. So yeah, for him, it was like, quite frankly, like when you look at Lake Champlain compared to the Atlantic Ocean, like the Atlantic Ocean is much closer to the White Mountains than, not much, but it's closer to the White Mountains than Lake Champlain is, I think.
Yeah.
So anyway, those beaver pelts were very valuable back then. A lot of people died because of them.
Cool.
All right, Nick, what else have we got?
Let's see. So this is actually shifting over. Speaking of, I guess, sort of Lake Champlain New York area, and I think Stomp actually linked this, but apparently a mountain lion was actually spotted in Rochester, New York. So basically article about a man being understandably terrified, and the New York Department of Environmental Conservation actually analyzed door cam footage and did confirm that it's indeed a mountain lion. I did a little back reading on this, and it actually sounds like it's been quite a while since a mountain lion's actually been confirmed sighted in New York. The last time there was actually a sighting was back in 2011. But it said that often males from the West will end up wandering to new territories. I know there's actually been instances in Chicago in the past, in the early 2000s, where they shot a mountain lion. And it said that a lot of times those ones tend to come sort of from the Dakotas and stuff. There's no breeding populations confirmed in the state. But just something kind of crazy. I feel like a lot of these articles, even when I first clicked into it, I figured if Stomp linked it, it was legit. But yeah, they confirmed that, yeah, it's definitely a mountain lion that the guys saw. So kind of terrifying. If you're in Rochester, I guess be careful. There's a mountain lion lurking around at night. Very, very big cat.
This is crazy. I'm going to link the interview with this guy because he's like amazing.
Yes. Also, probably the most entertaining part of this whole thing is the gentleman that was interviewed.
Yeah. You see these interviews where people, look, people that live in the city, they're not used to wild animals. And this guy is like, he's shook for the whole situation. He heard roar and felt raw, and he said, I got to go, man. I got to get out.
Yeah, he had his bat and he was ready to go. And my theory is that I don't think it really matters what you have on you. I think if a mountain lion's hunting you, they're probably going to get you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is interesting. So, all right, maybe it'll make its way to the White Mountains. We'll see.
Yeah, hopefully not.
All right, what else we got, Nick?
Well, let's see. This was another national story, but unfortunately, a family actually collided with a elk at 101 miles per hour. This happened on July 14th, and their car hit an elk at 101 miles per hour on Wyoming Highway 47. And one of the sisters survived the crash, and the other didn't. So very unfortunate. And Stomp kind of went in to pull a bunch of sort of interesting articles just on sort of worst states for animal collisions. I know New Hampshire, I feel like maybe I just have it in my head from the signs, but I feel like you think like moose collisions are definitely probably a more common thing than they are. I don't want to like jinx myself or anybody of us on the call. It seems like deer are definitely the most common thing that get collided with in New Hampshire. And it seems like not super surprisingly, it's way more common up the further north you go, like Coos County, Pittsburgh, and some of those towns that are way further north, denser forest, less people. But some interesting statistics over here if you're kind of curious about as far as crashes in New Hampshire.
Yeah. I've hit a deer going like about 75 miles an hour on 495 in Methuen or Haverhill, Mass, and it was like terrifying. I'm actually still have like kind of PTSD about driving at night over it. Like I will not drive in the fast lane of a highway. And typically, like, I will go pretty slow at night. Like, I can't see that good at night anyway, but, like, it was traumatic. And the deer just got, like, absolutely smoked. It ran right into the side of my car. Luckily, I had, like, a larger, like, not a big car, but, like, a mid-size SUV. So the deer hit squarely into the front of the car. But, like, I think, Nick, like the Subaru, the car, like, if you hit a deer with that thing, there's a possibility it could come right up in the windshield. It's a little bit scary. I mean, definitely like a moose or something like that. So I don't want you driving around at night with your car anymore.
I will drive cautiously. I'd actually, this happened up in New Hampshire with Ash's parents, but they had a deer that actually went through the side window the way it kind of glanced off, and scary stuff. And I know moose, especially if you have a sedan or something like that, like I think they generally win out in that fight, even if they lose their life, unfortunately.
Right.
I think people don't necessarily, until you've seen one, you don't understand how big they are. And also, I think some of these articles mention it too, but they're basically a giant ball of muscle that weighs a couple tons. Like if your car hits them, like they're going to move, but like it's going to decimate and crumble your car. Like, definitely nothing to mess around with, even if statistically New Hampshire isn't as high as some of the states, say out west with elk and deer and things like that. But definitely something to be cautious of, I think, in the summer months. And even like with you guys definitely made me think twice, not to jump to the traverse, but I was definitely driving a bit quickly, perhaps on York Pond Road, out to meet you guys. And you guys were like, you probably should slow down a little bit. And I was like, yeah, that definitely stuck in my head on the way back a little bit more of like, yeah, this is probably one of the most likely areas to see moose and the whites and stuff. So just kind of try to have your wits about you and be paying attention to what's on the side of the roads and in your periphery as well as what's in front of you.
Right. Yeah. You know, where the deer are really smart. So people talk about Florida, but the deer in Florida are like really smart. Like those things know to stay on the side of the road. I don't understand what it is. Like I've driven back from like Orlando Airport or West Palm at night to go back to Vero Beach, and like those things just stay on the side of the road. They know not to cross. All the other deer are stupid. Like the ones in New England and out west, they're not that bright.
A testing for the ones in southeastern Mass, I swear that they actually try to run into your car.
Oh, they do?
Even if your car is stopped. Like I've had one right at maybe a mile from my house at a kind of near a farm field near here. And like I stopped in the night and like he like darted almost into my hood when my car was completely stood still. And I was like, dude, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, they should bring what they should do is like box up some of those deer in Florida and bring them up to like Maine and New Hampshire and Massachusetts. And mix them in, and then maybe they'll learn. Like they'll be like, "Look, guys, it's like you got to look both ways here. Don't be crossing the road."
Do like a good old like knowledge transfer session between the deer from different regions. Like, listen, so what you want to do?
So down in New Jersey, my brother-in-law lives in New Jersey, and I can't remember which highway it was, but they actually built bridges that they planted trees on to cross the highway, and it reduced deer crashes by like a very significant amount. I don't remember the exact number, but it was a significant number of crashes that were reduced.
See, I would be happy to have my tax dollars go for a project like that.
Deer Bridge.
Yes. So anyway, I think that the advice here is, let's let the government start building bridges for the animals, but also just take it slow, especially at night. Like if you're driving in the fast lane on a highway or you're driving up Route 16 or something, like take it slow. Give yourself enough time to be able to stop safely if a deer or a moose jumps out in front of you.
Absolutely.
Are you ready for Slasher's Gear Review?
Nick, do your kids does your wife use those like fancy water bottles, the big metal ones with the Jake and Peter, your family, you must have seen these things, these big giant water bottles that weigh about 50 pounds.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
The Stanley.
Yeah. Yes. Stanleys. Yeah. They're also a weapon.
Yeah, they are
very
a weapon.
Heavy.
They're actually, I say that to my kids. I'm like, yeah, whack somebody. But I see people hiking with these things sometimes, and I'm like, wow, you're really like just putting extra work in there that you don't need to. But the reason I bring this up is that Stomp put in a gear review here. So Ozark water bottles. So these aren't exactly like a Stanley. They have like a smaller kind of screw top in them, but they've been recalled 850,000 stainless steel water bottles because the lid can forcefully eject, unexpectedly striking consumers, resulting in permanent vision loss for two people. I wonder how much money you get from. Nick, let me ask you a question. Would you sacrifice an eyeball for a $3 million settlement from Walmart?
I'm going to go with no.
You wouldn't.
No. No.
I feel like
maybe I don't know. Do you have a price? What's your price?
Peter doesn't look.
What's the price?
Jake's thinking about it.
Yeah,
but Peter's not sure.
$3 million. No, five. That might be there.
$3 million. That's $125,000 of annual recurring salary.
Breaking it down
4%. If you that's tempting. But anyway, so there's these Ozark Trail 64-ounce stainless steel insulated water bottles are forcefully ejecting, and they've been sold in the chain stores across the country since 2017, and now a notice has been published by the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission on Thursday indicating these products pose a serious impact and laceration hazard. So somebody must have lost a lawsuit, or there must be a settlement going on, because they've been selling these things for like 10 years almost, and now all of a sudden they're dangerous.
So what's funny to me too, and so And Peter will, this will resonate with Peter, since I know Peter's a big brewer, or was a big brewer of beer and fermentables for a while. So basically they mentioned that if you're storing anything perishable, carbonated beverages or like juice or milk or things like that, basically fermentable things, that it can build up pressure and then pop out the bottle. So this isn't something unique necessarily to these. Maybe the threading they have or something on the bottle isn't as secured as they thought it was, if it's popping off and hitting people in the face. Like you got your kid's apple cider in there for a while, and then it gets funky and then explodes in your kid's face. But
yeah, I mean, that was my thought. It's like, it's clearly not water that's driving the cover to pop off. It's carbonation or something. It seems like, a simple label would be enough, but maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, those threads on that screw in the picture look so... I could just imagine some materials engineer in 2017 was like, I figured out a way to save the company $500,000 by shaving off the size 5%. Of the threads that go into the screw by like 1/10 of a millimeter, and over 10 years it'll save us $1 million, something crazy like that. And now you've got this. So
some cover up where like popped in like someone's face in a meeting. They're like, we can't do it. It's already getting manufactured. We're going to save 10% on these.
Yeah. So when you guys see Ozark Trail products, when you see somebody out in the wilderness and they've got an Ozark Trail backpack or a tent or something, are you putting your nose up in the air and being a snob, or are you just like, you know what, whatever works for you works for you?
Yeah, everybody has to start somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Got to start somewhere, man.
I was going to say, maybe don't look directly at the bottle if you do see an Ozark bottle. Don't get too close to it.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. I think that's the right answer. I mean, I don't want them looking me directly in the eye with their Ozark Trail gear.
Don't point it at me.
It's all good for them. So. All right. So then this next one here is this. Did you put this on, Nick? What is EMF?
I did not. I'm perusing as we speak. I'm not necessarily sure.
Hold on a second here. EMF blocking.
Oh, electromagnetic fields.
Oh, what does
so
that
this
mean?
Is interesting. So I think, and I have not done much research into this myself, but I think there's concerns that long-term exposure to like electromagnetic fields generated by your phones and certain electronics can cause health issues over time, or maybe something that we haven't really known yet for all of us that keep our phones in our pockets all day or maybe close by. But it appears that this company, Haven, HAVN, by Lambs, is generating clothing that actually blocks electromagnetic fields. So interesting.
How am I gonna download the instructions from the shadow government if I'm blocking my electromagnetic field? How am I gonna get my instructions, Nick?
I'm not sure, Mike. I'm not sure.
All right. Well, okay.
But it's out there if anybody's curious.
Okay, so if you
put your phone in your pocket, do you not get the text anymore?
I don't know how that works.
Yeah,
I think if you if you have electromagnetic, if you stick your phone in if you're wearing underwear and then you stick it in your underwear and then send it, I'm gonna have to get some of this and experiment. So.
We all know that hiking a mountain can be hard at times. So here's a corny dad joke to help you get over it. Ba-dum-bum.
Normally I do a dad joke, but my dad joke book is underneath my it's going to be a mess, so I don't have anything. Jake, do you have a dad joke that you want to share with the audience?
You put me on the spot.
Yes.
When does a joke become a dad joke?
I give up.
When it becomes apparent.
There we go. Jake saved the day.
You would have
there
something.
we go.
Save the day. Thanks, Jake.
I knew you would have something. All right. Well, moving on here. That was excellent, Jake. I appreciate you stepping in for me there because I dropped the ball. But if you are interested in getting free stickers, you can get those at Ski Fanatics or you can get those at Spinner's Pizza Parlor. And then if you're interested in advertising with Slasher, send us an email to the SLASRPodcast at gmail.com. And then if you're interested in getting swag, there was a group chat going on between Nick, Stomp, and I about our bonfire shop, and we were lamenting on the fact that quite soon it will be hoodie and sweatshirt season. So choose between super popular hoodies, classic or V-neck t-shirts, and more. The color selection is great and they're priced to move. Help spread the word about Slasher and Represent today. Within the next 5 weeks or so, it will be cold enough where you will need a hoodie at night in New Hampshire. So think about that. And then if you are interested in supporting us, and if you want to support Nick on his quest to take his lovely wife Ashley to the Omni Hotel, you can buy us a coffee. And you can donate to support the podcast, actually. We're going to buy equipment and other fun stuff. So check out Slasher's Buy Me a Coffee website, and donations will help us pay for web hosting, distribution, live events, and a nice dinner for Nick and Ashley at the Omni Hotel. And then thank you to Kim Ustal and Nancy MVY for buying coffees this week. So we appreciate it.
Thank you.
You can also become a monthly supporter if you want. Just tick that box and make a regular donation. Very good. And then warm welcome to Slasher Senator. I guess that's what happens when you tick the box to do a monthly. Yes. You become a senator on the
and then going forward, we'll try our best to refer to you as Senator.
Exactly.
Formally.
You get a nice title there. And that's thank you to Roger Mainly Hikes. And Roger, just to shout out to you, I know that you had a little bit of a health ailment and a little bit of a scare there, but I know that you're on the mend, and we're going to get together and go hiking eventually.
Most definitely.
Hope you're feeling better soon.
Yeah, I feel better, Roger.
Hey, hold my beer. It's time to find out what Mike and Stomp are drinking on this week's Beer Talk.
All right, so now's the part of the show where we do beer talk here. We've got breaking news, Nick. Do we have a breaking news drop that you could put in
I can try to find something. I'll see what we can come up with.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
that,
like
Morse code.
Or like that. Oh, yeah, like the ticker tape sound.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
I'll see what I can do.
All of Hampton Beach is celebrating right now because New Hampshire has legalized public alcohol consumption in designated social districts. No word on whether Hampton or Seabrook are part of that, but I'm guessing they're going to be, and it's going to be chaos. But people want to drink, Peter, and what are you going to do? Are you going to arrest them all, or are you just going to let them live their lives?
Live free or die, right?
That's right. That's right. So,
but don't drink beer in public.
Ayotte, yeah, exactly. Who is just locked in her re-election, guaranteed re-election, although she's still going to legalize pot. But she signed House Bill 467 into law on Monday, giving adults the green light to purchase to-go alcohol drinks from bars and restaurants and enjoy them while walking through designated public zones known as social districts or sip and stroll areas. So this law goes into effect on September 5th. So State Rep Michael Moffitt from Loudoun said I see what's going on here. This is like for the biker weekend. Legalizing public drinking is a welcome move for New Hampshire with a twofold benefit. It enhances socializing, bringing people together to get to know each other in ways that they would not otherwise, and also as an economic component where businesses take place that would not happen otherwise.
That line gets me with the ways that they otherwise would not have done. You can take that a lot of different ways.
Yeah, that's right. So I guess now, apparently this is an umbrella law that basically says, okay, you can designate these social districts or sip and stroll districts, but it's incumbent upon the towns to then pass local ordinances that designate particular areas as social districts and sip and stroll areas. Can you imagine Hampton Beach is going to be wild? You can walk around with frozen margaritas from one place, and it's going to be crazy.
I mean, they do now.
They do now, so that's true. So I guess each locality can set the hours of operation and mark the district's boundaries with clear signage. I like sipping and strolling. I like that's a good. When they legalize marijuana publicly, what are they going to call that? Puffing and
I don't know.
I don't know. We'll have to think of like a
next week. We'll brainstorm.
Yeah, we'll think about
follow up.
But anyway, I guess there was some concerns, but the guy that passed this said that they're all overblown. So I guess it was concern about police enforcement, addiction, and then some other things, but they just blew that off and said, look, let's party. So sipping and strolling in New Hampshire, folks. So, Nick, with that, what are we drinking tonight?
So I just have seltzer tonight. I don't have anything. I'm being boring. Hopefully someone else can contribute.
I'm drinking water. I apologize, guys. Peter, what do you have?
Bourbon.
Excellent.
Yeah. I'm sipping. No strolling yet, but sipping.
What kind of bourbon are we drinking, Peter?
It's Bullet.
Okay. Excellent.
So, nothing expensive. Just,
And Jakester, you seem to be the only one that understood the assignment and brought a beer tonight.
Oh, that's good stuff.
I got a Stone Fear Movie Lions.
FML. So good. That's a good beer.
What kind of beer is that, Jake?
It is. It's a hazy IPA.
Okay.
Double IPA.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you, Jake, for not completely embarrassing us. Although, Peter, you're kind of bringing the thunder with. Have you just gone away from drinking beer and now you just drink the bourbon?
No, I still drink beer a little bit. It's just the carbonation and that stuff. If I have more than two of them, then it just doesn't sit real well with me. And I can just sit here and a couple ounces of bourbon over the course of 3 or 4 hours and be fine.
Very good. Well, all right. Nobody get drunk.
Sipping and squadcasting.
We don't want you guys strolling away or something drunk tonight.
I knew we should have gone left back there. Stomp, don't worry. I know it's this way. I've got a feeling in my gut.
Are you sure you're not about to have a bowel emergency?
Totally. We got this.
But I just blew out my hip. Fell down that gully with my 40-year-old microspikes.
Suck it up, Stomp. It's 4 p.m. We're at 3,500 feet. We got 9 miles back to the parking lot. Your leg may be broken. We got no cell connection, and we can't feel our fingers. But we're finishing all of my list tonight. By the way, I need some water. I'm empty.
I would if I could see what I'm doing, but my headlamp batteries are dead.
You gotta be kidding me. What a chump. This is the last time I hike with you.
Whatever, mister. Do you know me? I have a podcast.
Whatever.
Let's find out what Mike and Stomp have been hiking.
All right, Nick, so now's the part of the show where we talk about recent hikes. So all I have is Kilkenney Ridge backpacking trip, which we're going to talk about when we do a deep dive with Jake and Peter. So why don't you go ahead and talk about your most recent adventures?
Sure. So this past week, had kind of an unsettled weekend with some family coming in, which was a lot of fun, but just didn't really know if I was going to get out or not. Friday looked absolutely beautiful, and I haven't really taken a ton of vacation yet this summer, so I burned a vacation day and went out to do Gale Head and the Twins. And admittedly, this is the first hiking trip I've done specifically to get peaks for the grid. I did not have any of these for July, and I also just really like the Twins, so it fit the bill. Headed up on Friday morning. Opted to do the Gale River Trail out and back for 2 different reasons. One was that there was some rain coming in the night before, potentially, and I was slightly concerned with the crossing of the Little River, if I had to end with that or do some sort of traverse, or if I started with that and getting a couple miles in and not being able to, I guess, get across. So I figured I'd just go that way and kind of not have to worry about it. The second thing was I kind of would rather just go up to South Twin rather than go down to Gale Head and then up to South Twin again, kind of to finish the hike. And actually, I'd never done the section of trail from the Gale Head hut up to South Twin before, so that was kind of a new section of trail for me, which was a lot of fun. But the forecast for the day, kind of interesting. It was supposed to clear up by 9-10 o'clock. Didn't actually clear up till probably more 10:30, 11. But scored some awesome views. Probably by the time I got to North Twin, and then by the time I got back on South, pretty much everything cleared out other than the presidential range. Awesome views from South Twin. I think it's one of my favorite in the Whites. And yeah, it was notably way colder than it was the previous weekend. I actually had hat and gloves on at Gale Head Hut when I was sitting and having a snack. So fun day out. Good trip. I think it was around 14.5 miles and around 4,750 feet of elevation gain. So fun day out, and be sharing some pictures, I'm sure, on the podcast page eventually.
Right. And then so when you came back over to South Twin, it was opening up and you got those views.
Yeah, I was completely socked in at Gale Head and going up to South Twin. You could tell the sun would poke out here and there, but yeah, it completely opened up, and it was kind of cool. It's always just that awareness of the more you kind of hike in New Hampshire. I actually am oh, that's Zealand. You could see South Hale when we went up there and kind of noticed these different little peaks and slides and Bond. Notice how we really can't see Bond Cliff at all from South Twin. You can see West Bond and Bond, but it's kind of blocked over there. See Moose Lock, and I did not realize going up South Twin, but coming down, like, holy moly, is there beautiful views looking at Garfield and then looking at Franconia Ridge. It's like outstanding views looking up to them. Like, you just have it seemed like the whole way down, and had a couple of pictures too where I was able to get like sort of the hut sitting in front with the ridge behind it, and it was really beautiful. And not a lot of people on trail after sort of the onslaught of people I saw coming down from Gale had a hut in the morning. Like I think I got there around like 7:30. And it was pretty quiet. Crossed some nice people, had some nice conversation. And the only other notable thing I had is I finally got pictures of a spruce grouse and some chicks on the trail that were heading out to North Twin, which I feel like usually they just flutter, and I hear them flutter and they just scared the crap out of me on trail. And like, you're kind of like, but yeah, there was one off pretty close to the North Twin summit. And I noticed that the mother had 3 chicks with her. And like, it was funny, like when I passed by the chicks, like they must be a defensive thing, but they all like hopped up on little tree branches and were kind of hiding, and the mother was on the ground, but it was really neat.
You probably ruined their day, Nick.
I mean, I try not to get too close, but
that's good.
Perhaps.
That's good. Yeah, those mountain chickens will always startle people. Never fails.
Yeah.
Well.
It's time for Slasher's Notable Hike of the Week. If you want to be considered for the Hike of the Week, simply tag Slasher on your social media post.
All right, so on to notable listener hikes of the week here. So we've got a long list here, Nick. So do you want to bang these out, and then I will I'll take copious notes and make a decision on who it might be, and I'll be keeping an extra eye out for dog hikers and parents with children.
All right, we'll have to have our friends Peter and Jake weigh in on some of these too. Apologies if I did not.
We might have an inside situation going on.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We do have a little bit of an insight. We're just going to say a lot of people tagged this P. Clemons guy on Instagram with his red line finish. And apologies if I didn't get everybody. We had a lot of tags over the past 2 weeks. I did the best job I could. Doesn't mean we don't like you or didn't want to share it out. I just didn't see it.
It does mean that I don't like you, but Nick still likes you. So.
Mike only likes you if you are a dog or you have a dog.
Yes.
All right. First up, we have Nook 603. So they tagged us twice. The first tag was for the AT New Hampshire section. They did, which was 72.3 miles in 3 days from Hanover to Franconia Notch. And then they tagged us later for doing a section from Zealand Falls all the way to Maine, which was 146 miles. So their trip total of ATing was 146 miles across 7 days. So that looked pretty neat. Guess they're just section hiking it, or maybe working on doing the whole AT one day.
Yep.
All right. So Mike, I don't know if we can give it to this one again, but we'll see. I know you have an affinity for beagles, but Arlo the Beagle tagged us twice. First post was Iron Mountain in Jackson, which we were recently talking about. Looks like they had a fun time, but they got swarmed by deer flies at the ledges. I currently have a deer fly bite on my neck that finally healed up not too long ago from when I was out with you guys on the Kilkenney. And they tagged us in a second post for doing South and North Moat out and back, which seemed more unusual to me. That seemed like it was probably a pretty good hike. Next, we have Sam's Photo Dumpy. So channeling inner Jakester D2, cross-country trip to Seattle and hiked 5.7 miles to the Mount Vermont Lookout Trail via Sourdough Ridge Trail. And I'm guessing that Jake might know who this is.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Jakester's daughter went out and hiked Mount Rainier where we were poking around here. So she basically had to outdo her old man. So she's a contender now.
Yeah, it looked like a beautiful hike out there out west. So very cool.
The pictures were amazing.
Oh, yeah. Next, we have Run Cast Run, Mount Pierce and Mizpah Hut. Looked fun. Our friend Andy, Summit Snack Attack, blasted. I always love the adjectives he uses with his trip reports, but blasted the Boulder Loop and Lookouts 3.5 miles in 54 minutes for his personal best. And Boulder Loop, I believe, is off the Kank.
Correct. It's right by Lower Falls.
Okay, cool. Yep. So nice job, Andy. RK Lacus, Crawford this was a funny post, but they said Crawford Notch Circle or Big Dun Loop. They went up Jackson, over to Webster, down Webster Cliffs, across 302. They said west side to the Willie Ridge Trail. I'm taking it they meant Willie Range Trail. And it sounds like they more or less went across Willie Field Tom and then down AZ Avalon And this marked halfway through their 52 with a view and a quarter of the way through the New Hampshire 48. So that's a solid day. Nice job.
Yeah, that's a beast of it. That's when people get the 4,000 footer fever and they start doing crazy summit. They start doing bagging like 5 or 6 in a day.
And like I could hit all of this.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Andy, again, Summit Snack Attack. This was and a couple of these were Seek the Peaks coming up, but his Seek the Peak event hike was Huntington Ravine and Nelson Crag for Mount Washington. So some nice pictures from that. And looked like he had a pretty good day for that as well. Badams 1590 loop over Mount Jefferson. Some cool pictures from that one. Idavia Mount Success and a visit to the plane wreck for 29 out of 52 with a view. New Hampshire Mountain Goat Girl, Crawford Path. They just said Crawford Path in the post. From my perspective and from what I could pick out, you could kind of see Chikura to the left and it looked like almost like looking down that dry river valley. I'm guessing it was looking south on Crawford Path around Eisenhower, maybe when you're going to Pierce. Let us know, NH Mountain Goat Girl, where that actually was. We can always kind of call it out or just to know because I was kind of curious, but really beautiful picture. Margaret and James hiked the Whites. This was cool. James, 4-year-old, who's 4 years old and 4 months, completed his 52 with a view up the Bald Faces and Eagle Crag, which I still need to get to. So congratulations. That's quite the accomplishment at that age. You can see where he goes from here. Me and the Mastiff. Oh boy, Mike's going to like this one too. Crockett's Ledge. I'm not familiar with where this was, and I did not look it up ahead of time. Does anybody know Crockett's Ledge?
It's in Meredith. Yeah,
okay.
It's overseeing like one of the smaller lakes in the lakes region.
Okay, so it looked really beautiful. Good job. What Donna Hamilton photographs? Seek the Peak hike up Tuckerman's and down Lion's Head on the rock pile. And I don't know if Marley Sue 2 was with what Donna Hamilton photographs or just in the same area, but she also did the same route up Washington, up Tuckerman's, down Lion's Head. Is that the most common thing that people do if they're going up Tuckerman, or do they just go out and back? Or
it probably a pretty common thing to loop down Lion's Head. It's
okay.
Take your pick.
Gotcha. Okay. Knickknack 7 tagged us in a video that looked like it was at the summit of Garfield. Could see that old fire tower base there and could see Franconia Ridge and stuff. So looked really pretty. Jude hikes the Whites. Black Cap, which I believe is in the Conway area, and I think Jake or one of you suggested this to me to do with Ryland one day because it's like a nice family hike.
Absolutely.
Cool. Yeah, it looked beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Our friend Heart Disease Hiker did Whiteface with KB Heckman or KB Heckman and crew for 39 out of 48 for KB Heckman. And they made a sign for our friend Roger Mainley Hikes, who has been recovering from some health issues, as we mentioned. So super cool. We wish you all the best, Roger, in your recovery. Hopefully get out there soon. This guy, Paul Lamar, 47 out of 48 on Mount Jefferson, who opted to do Mount Jefferson instead of joining on the Kilkenny. But he had a beautiful day. And I believe he's going to be working on finishing Owl's Head hopefully this weekend, which I think you guys are all pretty much getting out, or a good chunk of us are getting out with the crew. I know I'm going to probably be doing something else with my cousin. But we wish you success on your 48 journey, Paul. And Deanna as well. This one I'm not. Siprock 81. Is this TJ who you met, Mike?
That's TJ, yep.
Okay,
yeah,
TJ. Cool. So TJ did Shelburne Mariah for 49 out of 52. I absolutely loved Shelburne Mariah when I did this. So glad he had a great day out there. And he's getting pretty close to closing in. He's closer than I am currently right now. So cool. Solo Hikes did their 48 finish on Flume and Liberty on this past Friday, actually directly across from me on the Twins when I was up there. So congratulations on your 48 finish. It's definitely a contender. Then we have this guy, P. Clement 20, who we had a bunch of tags from other friends and Slasher listeners who kept tagging you. He did something like finishing the White Mountain redlining, so I guess that's a pretty cool accomplishment. But some great pictures from that. I actually edited a video together of day 2 that I'll probably try to share out on the Slasher page or maybe on our Instagram or something. But it was a great time, and so we're going to go into more detail. But big congrats, Peter.
Thank you.
Quite the accomplishment. Many tags.
This would be an easy one. So there's going to be 3 people that get this, and they're all the people that finished their list. So you got Margaret and James hike the Whites because they finished the 52 with a view. Then you've got our friend Daryl, who's solo hikes. He did his 48 finish, or he was with somebody that did their 48 finish on Flume Liberty. And then we've got our friend Peter, who's going to talk about finishing his red line here, and we're actually going to get into that segment right now, Peter. So that was a good segue. So Peter, Daryl, and Margaret and James.
Congratulations.
Congratulations for your list finishes.
Thank you.
There's much rejoicing.
And there was much rejoicing.
It's time for Slasher's Guest of the Week. Very cool, very cool.
Peter, why don't we start off with, can you explain to the listeners what the White Mountain Redline is?
Sure. So there's a guidebook, White Mountain Guide, right? So most people have seen it, but maybe not recognized exactly what it is when they saw it. If you go into any of the AMC shops, the Mountain Wanderer when he was open, and many other areas you can pick it up. Usually it's where people would go, and it comes with a set of maps to it, right? So it's all about the White Mountain National Forest. It breaks it up into sections. So, the area down in Moosilauke, for example, Cannon, Franconia, logical areas, and sort of how the maps are broken up themselves. So it's redlining. So, basically the lines on the maps are red. So, each section of the book breaks down the trails that are relevant within that section, gives you elevation, gives you some basic statistics of them. The more recent editions of the book have given more and more detail about what you'll find when you get out into that area. So one of the suggestions I would have to people is heed that understanding, right? Not all trails are equal. Some are much more wilderness than others. So that's really what the White Mountain Guide redlining is. It's about 1,450 to 1,500 feet, depending upon what edition you're looking at, depending upon, there's a lot of little side paths and things like that are in, 20 yards here, 50 yards there. So call it 1,500 miles of virgin trail. Does that make sense?
And I think that what I didn't realize until I think I started sort of watching you is, you always assume like, okay, well, you've got these major trails, and then there's all these little cutoffs. So, the water source, we'll talk about this, the water source on Cabot. So there's spur trails to get to these water sources, and then there's trails to get to certain campgrounds, and those are all part of the red line. So you have, in order to follow the rules of the game, and again, this is all self-reported and based on somebody's assurances that they're doing it, but most people don't cheat. But you have to do all those little spur trails, even if they're not necessarily like named trails. It's just you've got to go out to those little camp tent sites and those little water sources if they're listed in the book. Yep.
You got to go out to the shelters. You don't have to necessarily visit every tent site in that space, but you got to go out there, visit it, look around, see what it is, and then continue on, right? And I would say that was probably one of the challenges, migrating from doing the 48 to doing this, was when you're doing the 48, you're just walking past a lot of that stuff. So very often you found yourself having to go back and visit those trails so that you could check off, Liberty Springs tent site. Or one of the adventures that I had with Jake was walked right past Guillot tent site, and the 0.2 of a mile it is to get down to that, right? So had to go back and visit that whole section to go down. Now I've since been by there several more times, but when you're doing it, you're trying to check off the list. Some of these things you can walk 5 or 6 miles just to check off 0.2 of a mile.
Right. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking like, all right, I'm doing the 4,000 footer list right now, but I may in the future do some redlining, like try not to skip over those small sections. Like the example I always use is like every time I've gone out to Success, I basically do that little cut off onto the ledges so that I can get the nice view. And I've never actually done that maybe 0.2 of a mile back trail, because why would I when I can cut over through a nice ledge? But like as a redliner, you got to
do both, everything. Right? So you end up doing that loop and out and back or whatever, doing it multiple times. Sure. Right.
Great. And then can you talk about, so you did this in about 5 years, you had told us, which I was surprised about. Like, I feel like that's relatively quick. But the transition from doing the 4,000 footers and then deciding that you're going to do the red line, at what point did you decide, like, okay, I think I'm going to do something bigger than just the 4,000 footer list? And what was the transition like as far as tracking and planning?
Yeah, I'm a finance guy by trade, so I deal in spreadsheets. That's kind of my life. So it wasn't that much of a transition to actually track what I've been doing. I was tracking all of my 48 on a spreadsheet. So to take a step back a little bit, my son, who's now in college, was a Cub Scout, 12, 13 years ago. And then, we had went away, and this is where Jake comes in. We had gone away as families to a house up in Bartlett, right near Attitash. And one of the days that we were there, we said, okay, well, we got nothing to do. It's a nice day. Let's find a hike to do. And lo and behold, later on, I figure out that's the Mount Stanton Trail. Right. So we were staying right in that little village area, and we just walked up to Mount Stanton, and I would say that probably lit the ember of the hiking bug. My son continues on into Boy Scouts, and as part of that, one of the things that they would do every year is go to one of the AMC huts on a preseason, not full service. So like in the May time frame, and we went up to Mizpah and walked out to Pierce, right? So seeing my son visit Pierce for the first time, and look up to Eisenhower and understand the beauty and the resources and everything else that we have at our fingertips in this area. So from there, I would say took it as a good father-son opportunity, as it were, to say let's see how engaged I can keep him in doing this. So started to ramp up a little bit, visiting some of the other 48 right around the time COVID hits, right? Now, I think for a lot of us, COVID meant work from home, and no different for me. So I was home 6 days of the week, and to avoid going stir crazy, said, okay, what can I do to get out of the house? And if that meant doing a day trip up to the mountains, to go on a hike for 6 or 7 hours, that's what we did. So by the end of 2020, we had finished our 48. After that, still, again, you're still in the thick of COVID, so still wanted to get out. Well, what other lists are out there? 52 with a view. Okay, let's start. I looked at my hiking log earlier, and the first one we did after we finished our 48 was Morgan and Percival. Right, get up there, something different. I've always been somebody who likes to see different things, not keep going back and revisiting the same places, even if it's a vacation. Right, want to go see something different. So it wasn't too far after that I started to look at my hiking log and see that, okay, I just started doing some random things. So sometime in early 2021. I transitioned into, okay, what is this redlining thing? There's a spreadsheet that's out there off of the New England Trail Conditions website that people can download. I think the latest one that's out there is based upon the 30th edition. But then, let's start seeing what this thing is. I will say that, I don't want to say ashamed is probably a strong word, but I was very hesitant to suggest to anybody that I was actually pursuing this thing until I was at least 50% done, because they'd be like, what is the psychopath doing? Right? Because it is.
But I understand it. Yeah. I mean, I'm a spreadsheet guy, so I think when you downloaded that spreadsheet, you were like, I found the final boss spreadsheet of all hiking lists. And this is mine. So Jake, you were along for the ride. So is it fair to say you and Peter are best friends, or have I taken that position now that I'm in the mix, or is it fair to say you guys are best friends?
We're pretty tight.
Okay, that's good. So you were coming along, obviously, like you've been on the show before with Julie, and we've talked a little bit about sort of you and Julie pursuing the 4,000 footers, but you were basically the wingman for Peter on this. So at what point did you realize that like he wasn't just joking around about the red line stuff?
Pretty early on. I didn't think he was going to do it quite as fast as he did, but when Peter puts his mind to something, it's going to get done. Whether it's figuring out a new recipe for beer, or I'm done with beer. Now I'm going to move on to, making whiskey. You know what? I don't want to do that anymore. Now I'm into the hiking, and this is what I want to do. He went from a fair weather hiker to, full winter by himself. He did a lot of his stuff solo. Yeah. I was there for a lot of stuff, but a lot of the stuff he did was solo. And so as soon as he put his mind to it, I knew he was gonna get there eventually, and it was faster than I thought he would.
Right. And I think, Peter, so we've hiked a bunch for sure, but it sounds like you were able to I think you definitely overlapped on some hikes for us with like our winter hiking and whatnot, but also I think you probably were able to kind of jump in on some certain things to say like, all right, well, I can get a piece of a trail with this trip, and maybe I'll do a little side quest. But how much of your hiking do you think over the last 5 years was exclusively dedicated to redlining versus just fun stuff that you ended up doing with friends or going with Jake?
I would say probably 85% of it was dedicated to redlining. But again, like you experienced, right? If somebody said, "Hey, let's go out to Owl's Head," or "Let's go," I remember one of the first trips. I think the first trip where I met you was we did a wintertime Galehead twins, right? There was nothing in that for me from a redlining standpoint, but I had no problem saying, "Hey, let's go do that." It was a different experience doing it with different people, right? So I never got hung up with saying, "You know what, you guys go ahead and do this. I got to go pursue my list and my thing that I want to do." A lot of my list I did do by myself, but I think part of that was some of the trails that you visit, you're not going to see anything, quite honestly. If you look at the lists and you see some of these trails, like, okay, we're going to walk in the woods, which is beautiful unto itself and part of what I enjoy about it, but you're probably not going to get to a summit. You might not even get to a river or a cascade or something like that. It's literally going to be a 4 or 5, 10 mile walk in the woods to be able to check off something on a list.
Right. And I think the most important thing, Peter, I've been enjoying watching this adventure. I think the most important thing that I've learned from hiking with you, and one of the things that I would definitely I would encourage other people that are listening to this is it is absolutely critical that you have a hiking crew member on your team that is an excessively tall guy. So Peter's like 6'6", so it's really good to send him across frozen river crossings first, because then you'll know that the ice is solid, and then he's very good at knocking down cobwebs.
I break cobwebs really well.
And then also, like in the wintertime, it's critical that he'll knock the snow off of like the evergreens that fall into the trail. So it's been great hiking with him, and it's critical that you have an excessively tall person in your hiking crew.
And that's been one of the bigger challenges hiking in the winter, right? For because obviously the snowpack puts you up, and for a lot of people that's maybe not that big of a deal, but for me, you're constantly just pushing brush out of the way.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, it was actually very interesting watching you and how you maneuver, because I take it for granted, and Jake's kind of the same. Jake's like a spider monkey. He can get up and around anything. But you don't have that easy way of doing it. So the fact that you were able to go and do all this winter hiking, I mean, you must have probably put about 1 million gallons of snow down your neck over the years.
Oh, at least. Yeah. That and pine needles.
Yeah. It's crazy. So, talk to me about building a community of friends, though. So over the years, you've kind of picked up a crew of friends. Was that your intent? Did you think that was going to happen, or was that just a dumb coincidence?
No, there was no intent to that. I'm not a big social media guy, so I'm not on Facebook. I am on Instagram for people who probably have seen anything posted out about it. That's where you've seen it from me. So yeah, I mean, I think Jake made a connection with you, Mike, and then there's other tentacles that go out there in the hiking community in New Hampshire. It's just like that, right? It's tentacles out. This person knows that person, and you join this hike, and there might be 5 people on it, 3 of which you've hiked with before, 2 of which you're meeting for the first time, and next time you go out, you might hike with them, or they might throw out into a chat, hey, I'm going to go do this today. Anybody interested in coming? And usually if you send it out to 20 people, there's a half a dozen that are like, yeah, I'm coming.
Right. So yeah, it's been especially I kind of find that with the winter hiking is you start building a little network of
absolutely
people, which is great. So with the redlining, and for the listeners that you aren't familiar with, the spreadsheet that you talked about has tabs, which those tabs are basically like different sections of the white. So can you talk a little bit about from your perspective, what is your favorite tab? What is your least favorite tab on the redline?
I'll say. The least favorite tab might be an unpopular choice, but I'm going to go with Cannon. Okay. Not that, Lonesome Lake up to Cannon is a very nice hike, and, High Cannon Trail and even across the Cannonball is all very nice. The rest of the trails that are on it are kind of a nothing. Not a lot to see there. Coppermine Trail is nice enough, but like Real Brook Trail, even a lot of the Kinsman Trail that comes up from Kinsman Notch, up over Wolf and stuff. Okay, it's the Appalachian Trail, but there's not a lot in there to see. I would say favorite tab, I'm going to go with Waterville. Simply because there's such a variety of terrain in there, right? I mentioned North Tri-Pyramid earlier in the slides in this, so you can get some really challenging terrain in that area if you want. Or there's a lot of stuff that's just in and around like the Greeley Ponds area right at the base of Waterville that if you just wanted to go out for a nice stroll, that's there. Right, you get a lot of mix of there's rivers and streams and summits and views and everything else within that tab. And quite honestly, being in Massachusetts, it's highly accessible, which adds to a shorter drive.
Right. So that's interesting. I'm surprised that Waterville, but it makes sense. And then what do you think is your, I guess, the most obscure area or an area that stands out to you as this is a place that no one would go unless they were doing redlining? Speckled region. So that's over, on the side. What's that? Not Grafton Notch, Evans Notch, over on the right there. And there's not a lot of trails in there, but I tend to think those are mostly frequented by either, again, people that are lunatics and redlining, or just the locals that are there. There's a few trails in there that are fairly long that sort of go from one side of the range over to the other 4 or 5 miles. Not sure how much foot traffic that sees in a while, and not well blazed, and can be a challenge to navigate if you're not kind of experienced finding the path or have some sort of electronic device with you helping you out. Right. Yeah.
That whole tab only has 30 or 40 miles in it.
Something like that. Yeah, it's not a lot. Yeah, Mount Albany, Red Rock Mountain. I know, Mike, you like Caribou Mountain, right? That's that area over Caribou, there. Yep. Yeah, and that's a nice little loop up there. But there's a lot of stuff to the south of that, Ames Mountain, Blueberry Mountain. But that's all very nice. But tough to say that you would go search that out.
Right. Yeah. It's just, it's not the top of a lot of people's lists. Like you said, it's like redliners, local people, or people that have really just run out of other places to check out.
Yeah.
So,
but not many people over there, right? If you want to go out and walk for 8 or 10 miles and not see anybody else, except for the grouse that scares the heck out of you when you almost step on them. Those are the places to go.
What stands out as some of the hardest days for you?
Well, and I was thinking about that because I thought that might come up. I think a lot of it's situational, right? It's not even necessarily related to the terrain or the distance. I've done a few that are, I am no Andrew Drummond, right? So what I'm going to say, might be a long hike or a big elevation for a lot of people. I'm in my mid 50s, not in tremendous shape. I'm, good enough shape to do what I'm doing. But, probably 25 miles, I've done, a half a dozen times, and that doesn't bother me too much. Doing more than 5,000 or 6,000 feet of elevation in a day is probably a lot. Jake and I did a PEMI traverse where I mentioned it earlier, where we had to hit Guyot, came across South Twin, came down into, I think it's Franconia Brook, and around the western side of Owl's Head and all that. That was a long day, right? Would you say so, Jake?
That was a very long day. The last, 2 miles before we hit Lincoln Brook were rough. It was very rough. You're just tired. A lot of elevation. Again, people who hike the common trails think of a certain pace. Well, I step from that rock to that rock and I keep going. When you get on some of these more obscure trails, it's not, sometimes you can't see your feet because of the ferns, right? I think we experienced some of that coming across the Kilkenney range. Right. So your pace slows down. You mentally fatigue because you got to think about every step. And, when you step down, am I going to step down into a hole or am I going to step on a log or something else? I did a big loop that was from Rocky Branch up Davis Path to Isolation, then came back around, Rocky Branch the other side. That was another 25 mile day. One of the more difficult ones that stands out is a hike that Jake and I just did this past spring up to Shelburne Mariah. Again, I think in summertime conditions, probably not that challenging. Well, and if the trail is cleared of flow downs, probably not that challenging of a hike. We did it as overnight stayed up at Imp, and but that was the kind of the freak snow storm we got after everything had melted off, and then it was late May,
and it made for real challenging hiking the second day. There were a ton of flow downs to contend with, as well as 3-4 inches of snow on the trail, which just made for slippery going. Coming across the bog bridges up towards Shelburne Mariah was super slippery. We both ended up hip deep in mud a couple of times. With heavy packs on, not that it's super heavy packs, but heavy packs on makes for a very long day.
Yeah.
It was one of my least favorite hikes so far.
Yeah, I was going to say, was there any trail that was sort of your favorite or like most surprising section that you did that you kind of like blew you away from what your expectations were?
Specific trail, no. I would say a lot of the stuff in a lot of the more challenging stuff too. But again, it's rewarding, which is why there's so many trails. There's the Northern Presidentials, right? That whole side leading down into Route 2. There's so many trails in there. And you don't even have to come up and summit something, right? So you got was it Kelton and Brookside, and I might struggle with specifically what the names of some of the trails are in that area, but there's just a ton of cascades in there, right? That if you just did Valley,
so many waterfalls.
If you just did Valley Way and Airline, it's like, yep, I'm just seeking the summit and coming down. You're missing out on all that stuff.
Cool.
That day that we did Pine Mountain, the day of the Mount Washington Auto Road race, Peter and I did whatever it was, 8-9 miles. Never broke tree line for about 30 seconds, but we were just doing all those side trails over there. Stayed off of Valley Way and had to a dozen waterfalls, easy, swimming holes everywhere.
Very cool.
So I would also say, and it wasn't part of redlining, really difficult hike was for your winter finish, Nick, which I didn't make. I made it to Bond Cliff. But yeah, that would probably be one of the more difficult hikes I had done. I was coming off a upper respiratory thing a few weeks before and just wasn't in for it.
Well, I appreciate you coming out there. I've heard that you guys are just lucky that I picked like the worst snow weekend of the year to go do the bonds.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was brutal. I didn't make that one either, Peter, so no shame there.
No.
But why don't you take us through with Jake and Peter the finisher? So Peter, we finished with a 3-day backpacking trip on the Kilkenney Ridge, so that was I think that was a good choice for you to finish on. But Nick, why don't you, I guess, take the listeners through with Jake and Peter on the 3-day adventure that we went on.
Yeah, so not to jump in whenever you want, guys, but I've done some of this before. I hadn't done all of it. I know you guys did the full Kilkenney Ridge Traverse. We're actually going to have an up-and-coming So You Want to Have Cabot in the Bulge the Horn episode where we talk a lot about the Kilkenney Range and sort of the name origins and stuff like that. Very interesting area in New Hampshire, part of that section of the White Mountain National Forest that's separated from sort of the rest of it south of Route 2 and whatnot, and I guess Route 3. I was curious, Peter, did you... And I asked you this in person, but for the listeners, but did you actually plan on finishing over here? And like, how far out was it before you were like, I'm going to finish with a Kilkenney Ridge Traverse?
Well,
with these trails,
I would say about a year ago, I looked at what I had left and said, how do I want to finish? Probably not unlike how a lot of people approach their 48, right? You get down to the last dozen or so, see what you got on your list. And it was either, going out with a bunch of people, or just doing it quietly by myself on some side trail And I would say I probably left it until about 6 months ago and said, okay, is anybody interested in doing a Kilkenney Traverse? Because what I had left to do out there, I could have done as a couple of individual day hikes, from a trail standpoint. And, got a good group of guys, ready to go. I asked my son if he wanted to go, and he was down for it. So yeah, about 6 months ago, I said, okay, yep, that's how we're going to finish. And I need to get everything else done before that date.
So the Kilkenney Ridge Trail, for our listeners, if you're not familiar, it starts, its northern terminus is basically at South Ponds and Stark. Most people probably hit this or end up hitting it because of the way I did, which is going out to Rogers Ledge. That's kind of the northern end of the Kilkenney Range, the first sort of the peak that people think of. There's also the Devil's Hop Yard, which is at that end, which I also know you needed as well, Peter, on that list. And then it goes all the way down to its southern terminus, which is at the Star King Trailhead at the bottom of Mount Star King in Wambeck in Jefferson. So the Kilkenney Ridge Trail runs basically that it runs to technically the summit of Wambeck, I think, and then it becomes the Star King Trail after that. Okay. So that whole section is the Kilkenney Ridge Trail. And I know how'd you decide to break up sort of the hike over the weekend? How'd you guys decide to tackle it?
Well, I figured it was either one night and stay at the cabin, right? Because then it would be about 12 miles each day. Or, what would be logical to break it up for 2 nights? It's either staying at Rogers Ledge campsite or Unknown Pond campsite. And Mike knew of a different sort of backwoods area that apparently is popular. So to me, that made more sense. It made it more relaxing, just hang out, do 8 or 9 mile days.
Yeah, cool. So you ran Friday to Sunday. The first section I know you guys did was pretty much meeting at South Ponds, up Rogers Ledge, over to Unknown Pond campsite. Do you want to talk a little bit about that day? And two, for the listeners, this was this past weekend of basically the 11th, 12th, 13th that you were out there. So it was toasty that weekend is the thing that I wanted to point out and preface before we get into it. It was a hot weekend that you picked to finish on. And again, it's the first couple weeks of July. I think probably third, fourth week of July, first, second week of August. In the whites, you're talking about just about as warm as it gets before things start shifting to the next season. So want to take us through that?
No. So, I mean, yeah, like you said, it was hot. More than that, it was humid. Right. So I mean, we spotted a car. And then started out, like you said, hit the Devil's Hop Yard that finished me off for the terrifying 25, and all the optional list on there, which again, by Redline, you kind of do a lot of these other surrogate lists by the very nature of them. So, walked out Devil's Hop Yard, very cool spot out there. It kind of looks a little Jurassic Worldy as you go out towards the end of it.
I'd say when we were talking about it, we basically kind of agreed that it was very similar to the Ice Gulch, but a little more narrow, a little mossier, But like it just sort of that's a weird thing about that trail is it just ends. There's a sign that just says the trail ends here, and then you
end
just
of trail.
Yeah, end of trail. So, okay, I guess we got to the end. Let's go back.
Is that unique for redlining, Peter? Is that the only trail that like does that in the Whites, where you just reach and it just says end of trail, like at that ledge or whatever?
The only other one I can think of is Franconia Falls.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense.
There might be. That's the only other one I can think of. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, from then on, you know, we walked up. You know, it's a pretty progressive, I want to say easy hike. There's not a lot of steep sections in there. You get to Rogers Ledge. You know, given the heat of the day, and it was a little bit overcast when we started out there. We hung out on Rogers. We must have been out there for an hour, 90 minutes, something like that. We just sat out on the rock and and enjoyed the day. When we started, there was a decent breeze, which we were enjoying. I think when the breeze went away, we said, "Yeah, let's keep moving." And then Mike told us there was this nice area where there was a pond, where it was like one of the most beautiful areas up, you know, that you'd ever see up there. And then we come across it, and it's all beaver activity, and Jake falls in the water, and you know the bog bridges are deteriorating.
The beavers ruined everything. Yeah.
It's like
Yeah, I was so disappointed, but it is like there was, matter of fact, there was a second time. There's another time where I was disappointed with the campsite, but there's this like mountain pond that doesn't have a name as far as I can tell on any guidebooks, but it is kind of picturesque. Like there is some bog bridges that are still intact, but yeah, the beavers have really overloaded, and it's just essentially like now it's a single log that you have to traverse. It
was still a pretty pond, Mike.
Yeah, it was a pretty pond, and Jake almost fell in because he had to do like a Superman jump to save himself. So, which was impressive because he was carrying 30 pounds on his back. But yeah, it's a nice area going down from Rogers Ledge up to Unknown Pond. But it's like a kind of a sneaky hard climb there. I thought, Peter, do you agree?
Oh yeah, it's just kind of a long grind. Right. Yeah. I didn't think it ever got overly steep, but it just kind of kept going.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So for reference, what was it? What was it, about like 9 miles and like 3,000 feet or something you guys did?
Yeah.
First day. Or actually probably almost each day.
Yeah. Yeah. We had grand illusions of bushwhacking up to Unknown Pond Peak, which isn't that aggressive of a climb. But I think by the time we got to the col where it kind of crests over and down to Unknown Pond, it was, nobody was down for doing that.
We're like, nah. Not today.
Yep. So we got to Unknown Pond, set up camp. A great little camp area. The pond is the water source. So there's no running water, you know, stream or anything. But that said, I don't think anybody had a problem. Problem there. There were plenty of sites. There was already 4 or 5 people in a couple of different tents set up further up from us. That was good.
So yeah, we just set up camp, and then I think that this was the first time. I was just going to comment, like this is the first time that I've done backpacking where we got there early enough where we had like multiple hours of chilling and hanging out time, which I thought was like awesome. So that's why I think your plan of having like the 3 days of like 9 miles with 3,000 feet of elevation gain like gave us that extra time to just kind of chill out and relax, which was a good call.
Great.
Awesome. So that brings us to day 2. So day 2 was basically Unknown Pond over to Willard Notch. So Willard Notch is a notch that a lot of people probably haven't heard of, but it's actually the gap more or less between the southern end of Mount Cabot and the northern end of Terrace Mountain. So Terrace Mountain sort of leads further south to the Weeks, but there's a gap in there that's pretty visible if you do look on a map. I know even when Peter, when I was reaching out and you were kind of talking to me about the route, I was looking, I'm like, I figured this is probably Willard Notch because I haven't seen it yet. At least the app I look at, and I'm like, I hope that's it. But yeah, so that actually is going to end up taking you from Unknown Pond over to the Horn, the Bulge, Cabot. You guys hit Terrace Mountain. I had bailed by that point, and then down to Willard Notch. So how was day 2?
Day two was great. We got, I would say a later start, but we were, not waiting for you, but we waited for you.
Yes.
I mean, you made great time, great time coming up on Unknown Pond Trail. But yeah, we probably hit the trail. What was it, 9:30 or so? Made our way. It's a pretty short jaunt up to the Horn. And, again, the Horn, right? We kind of hung out there for a while,
it was gorgeous.
Getting great views, relaxing, trying to cool down a little bit for what we could. Mike dropped his phone in the water, recovered it unscathed. But
he probably has tetanus.
Yeah, and at some point, Mike's got to do a gear review of his seat, which everybody on the trip was jealous of. But so we left the Horn, came up over the bulge. There's not much to see there except for a rock pile in the woods. It's very similarly with Cabot once you get to that, and then we had to search for the water source. Right. So those familiar with redlining know that there's a water source in between Cabot and the cabin. And there is one of those little 4x4, 5x5 wooden blocks that says, water and an arrow to it. But I would say that casual hikers walking through there thinking that there's water just off the trail need to be aware that water is about 0.2 of a mile and 250 foot down. A very tree-strewn trail, right? That there's a lot of hopping over it and ducking under deadfall and everything else just to find that at the bottom it's great cold water that's coming out of a plastic pipe that seems to be a fresh spring, but it's a lot of effort to get down to it.
Yeah, by tree-strewn reed, the last section of before the spring had like 5 80-foot pine trees falling down across it that you had to up over and down under kind of deal.
Yeah.
And if you do your research on the water source, it is very unreliable. There's a lot of people that go down there and say, nope, it's not running.
Yeah, I think
it was running great for us.
Oh yeah, it was beautiful. I think I was chatting with you, Jake, on the way up, and I'm like, I feel like with how humid it was, like you would absolutely expend more hydration and energy going down to get water there than like you probably would make up for. I mean, for sure, if it wasn't running well. Yeah, it was pretty wild. Yeah, and I failed to mention I hiked in like Peter mentioned and met you guys on day 2 because I couldn't do the full thing due to work obligation. But yeah, I hiked in on Unknown Pond from the southern end and kind of met you guys and joined up with the crew.
Yeah. So we went from there. We went up to Mount Cabot Cabin. By that point,
creepy.
Pretty creepy. But by that point, shout out to Steve. It was evident he was getting down a little bit. I think the heat was killing a lot of us, right? And some days it's just not your day. So fortunately, Nick, you were with us, and you were just there for a day trip, so he had an option to out if he wanted to. So after we left the cabin, we came down, hit Butthole Notch, which I think is where we said our goodbyes to you and Steve, right?
Yeah, and I was going to shout out to him just because I hadn't gotten a view from it before. Bundle Rock on the way down Kilkenney Ridge on Cabot has some pretty impressive views from it across the terrace and stuff. I've only seen it clouded in, so I was like, oh, this is nice to get on the way down. But that's really your only the only view from near Cabot, I guess. Yeah, really.
So,
but yeah, that spring was welcomed for sure.
Then we started to climb back up towards Terrace Mountain. For those that aren't familiar, Terrace Mountain's out on a little spur, probably less than 1/10 of a mile. Took the opportunity to drop our packs and just kind of sort of sprint up to it. We'd gotten a little bit of a rain shower right before that, which I think we were hoping would cool things off, but all it did was make things more humid. Terrace Mountain is kind of wooded at the top. You get some restricted views in a few directions, but nothing. It's worth visiting, but nothing spectacular.
Yeah, we were curious how you guys made out as Steve and I started going down the York Pond Trail and stuff, because it was looking pretty dark, especially when we got in the car heading back towards Berlin. I think it sprinkled on us a little bit, so I was kind of curious if that was going to hit you guys or not. But I'm glad the worst of it didn't, because it rained a little bit on me on the way home too.
Yeah. I mean, we were all so wet from sweating through the day. It's like a little rain wasn't going to matter.
Yeah, and when you were saying the humidity, like I think, like I was doing it in my head, but I think including a Gatorade, I drank something like 5 liters of water. Like it was like stupid, like so humid.
It was brutally humid.
Nasty.
So from there, we left Terrace Mountain. It's about a mile from there down to Willard Notch, where there's a little backwoods, I guess commonly used tent site area. And this is again where Mike might have led us a little bit astray in terms of the expectations. We were expecting a Holiday Inn with warm showers, and we get there and it doesn't look like anybody stayed there in the last 6 months.
Yeah, I got a bone to pick with the Cohos Trail people. Like, you need to start using these backcountry campsites and then cleaning them up a little bit. So, yeah, that was like a pristine place when I went there 5 years ago. But it's fallen on hard times. So I don't know what happened.
Was there anything as far as views or viewpoints going down from like Pico Terrace down into Willard Notch, or not really? No. Okay. No.
Yeah. There's no views, Nick.
Gotcha.
Not much.
That's curious.
The only problem with going to the worst problem with going down Terrace was that,
no.
Yeah, it rained a little bit like right before, and then like you're literally going through this car war. Like for Peter, it's just he gets his shins wet. For me, it was like half of my body was getting wet. So by the time we got to that campground, like we were soaked, and it was so humid that like nothing was drying off that night.
The bugs were brutal.
Insane, unbelievable. The mosquitoes through there.
Yeah, I think we were all pretty wiped out by the time we got there. So it was a case of set up the tents, get some food in our stomachs, and I think we were probably in our tents by 7:30.
Awesome. So this set you guys up for the third and final day of the Kilkenney Traverse, and I take it so your final section of trail, Peter, that you needed ended up being the Kilkenney Ridge Trail just up to Wambeck Summit.
Correct.
Okay. Cool. So this day would take you from Willard Notch up and over the Weeks, over to Wambeck, Star King, down into Jefferson at the Star King Trailhead. Yeah. So how did day 3 go?
Well, and you start out, and you start out with a little bit of a butt kicker, right? Because from the time you leave, you break down, you got to go up. I'm guessing it's about 1,200 feet. And again, there's nothing terribly difficult about any specific section of it. It's just a consistent grind for, a mile, just more than a mile, and going up 1,200 feet. And that brings you up to North Weeks. And then, for anybody who looks at it on the map, it's north, middle, south, and it's all of them are, down 300, up 400, down 500, up 600, whatever, right? It's you got to go down a little bit, up a little bit. And the trail does not see a lot of foot traffic. This is where you're one of those situations where it's a lot of grown-in ferns, a lot of blowdowns, and you're just sort of feeling with your feet as you go along. You can't see your feet. You're just sort of shuffling as you go. You might end up in some hardwoods as you're going along where it opens up a little bit better. Lots of blowdowns where you're checking here and there. I went around the blowdown, but now I'm not sure where the trail is. You might have to retrace a little bit, or at least once or twice we were spread out in different directions, saying, is the trail over there, or is it up the hill a little bit? And one of us would find it. Everybody would group back up and keep going.
I know. I'm not sure whether it was you, Jake, or Mike, or even Peter, but someone posted or shared a video of you guys around the Weeks, and I would have believed that you guys were out in like Alaska bushwhacking somewhere if you showed me the video, because it did not look like there was any trail to speak of, frankly.
Ferns were nearly waist deep on Peter.
Yeah. So yeah, and for I think there's a Kilkenney Traverse race coming up. I hope they're cleaning some of that up for those folks, because if not, the race isn't going to be that fast.
They got someone in there with a weed whacker or hedge trimmer or something. It looked wild.
So about a mile or so before it comes up to Wambeck, it starts to sort of level off. The terrain is still pretty ferny and grown in and wood and stuff, but it flattens out quite a bit. Our group of I think that we were down to 5 of us after losing Steve on the first day. met Julie, Jake's wife, Paul Lamel, and Steve actually came back up on the second day, and then one of our friends, Doug. So they hiked up from Star King Trail up to meet us that day, and I think it timed out pretty well. Where I think they were only waiting for us for 20 minutes, half hour or so. So we showed up and walked into the summit of Wombec.
I had a really important question. So that crown with tassels or whatever you're wearing, did someone bring that up for you, or did you haul that?
Julie brought that up. I was not going to carry that for 25 miles. Excellent. It was beautiful. and then I think it was Paul Lamel who had commented once we hit Wombec and we taken off towards Star King. He's like, "You guys just took off like a shot." I'm like, because this is the first legitimate trail we've seen in about 10 miles, right? Yeah. We can see, we can see to walk.
Yeah, see where we're going. There's no blowdowns.
Yeah, again, I didn't do the full thing with you, obviously, but like even going up the Unknown Pond Trail, the Unknown Pond to meet you guys, there's some areas like you guys talk about those ferns where there was one spot where I was crossing a river and I'm like, I don't know where. Could kind of poked around a little bit to see where it goes, but yeah, this whole phenomenon of like the woods is just, it's so grown in up in that like Coos County area and some of those trails. It's beautiful. Yeah. But I'm sure you guys were done. For me, it was like a couple hours. For you guys, it was like 3 days. I'm sure you were like ready to just be like, you see the clear path down Star King that's beaten down and there's good footing throughout the whole thing. You guys must have felt like walking onto it like a highway. Yep. after like being on dirt cobblestone roads or something for 3 days.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. So, and also I wanted to ask anything views wise on the weeks. I'm assuming there wasn't much or anything kind of notable, cool to see.
Nothing spectacular, but there were definitely a few peaks here and there. A couple of times in the middle of the weeks, there were a couple of okay peaks off to the east. Nothing spectacular, but nothing like the first couple of days.
Yeah. So after the Star King Trail, how'd you guys celebrate when you finally got to the bottom?
Somebody had brought in a bunch of beers.
In the top, I guess.
Somebody had brought in a bunch of beers. Well, yeah, we did had a shot up at the top to celebrate there, and the bugs kind of were persistent for all 3 days. So we didn't hang around too long on the top of Wombec. Moved over to Star King.
For what it's worth, Julie, Paul, and Doug said that there were no bugs until we got there.
That is true. I think that I remember them saying that, and that they had no bugs, and that all of a sudden when we got there, like the bugs just like swarmed them. So I think that might have been us.
I'm sure we did not smell good.
Yeah, no, we definitely did not.
It was funny, Mike, too. I remember it's probably a past episode, but we were talking about deer flies, and I'm like, I didn't know what they were, and like now I know what they are after just me and you guys. They're the little triangular kind of brown white kind of pattern, and when they bite you, it hurts. Like I think when we were by Bunnell Rock, Jake was like, "Hey, you're bleeding on your neck," and I'm like, "Oh, it kind of hurt for a second there," but pretty sure a deer fly just bit a chunk out of like near my jugular kind of area over there, and I was just bleeding.
Yeah, they're vicious.
Nasty. So.
Yep. And so got down to the parking lot at Star King. Somebody brought some beers. So sat around there for a little bit. Everybody, toasted, commiserated for a little bit, and then we headed over to Reckless for lunch. They sat us outside.
And we were still jealous of Mike's chair.
I'm still jealous of Mike's chair.
Yeah. So for the listeners, I have a little Helinox camp chair that I brought with me, and it takes 2 seconds to set up and break down. So literally every summit that we went on, I would just break that thing out. And then when we were at camp, I was in that thing pretty comfortable. And I think that after about 5-10 minutes of people sitting on logs and beer canisters and stuff like that. As a matter of fact, we should talk about that. We did use beer vaults. We didn't do a lot of hanging for food, but I think that it was much more comfortable sitting in the chair than it was on logs.
I ordered one last week.
Good thinking. Good call.
Awesome. And how much moose poop do you think you guys saw over the 3 days? If you had to guess in pounds.
I'd say tons.
Yeah. Tons. Yeah.
It was everywhere.
Yeah, I don't think there was like a quarter-mile section where we didn't see a bunch of moose poop.
Awesome, but no moose, strangely enough.
I think we were making enough noise where
a runoff.
They weren't going to hang around.
Excellent.
Mostly moose, a little bit of bear scat on the towards the end in the weeks.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious if you guys saw anything while you were out there.
Nope.
So, and we had a little kind of blip here too I wanted to touch on. So, it sounds like you guys were mentioning that water filtering was a challenge out there a little bit. Is that just logistically because of the types of spring? Like, I know, like, even one, for example, like the one I was on with you guys on Kilkenney Ridge Trail coming down to Bundle Notch, like that was literally just water flowing out of the trail. Like, it was almost like you had to find a little, I guess, spit where the water was naturally funneling into sort of something that you could get a water bottle in or pouch or whatever. But do you guys want to chat about that a little bit?
I just felt like our filters, we had filters and we had water sources, but like I know my filter like was all clogged up and was a pain in the neck. So I'm revisiting my my filter product. I'm going to switch it up and get a new one and see if that works a little bit better. I feel like Jake, or maybe you were like dealing with the same thing, I think, right?
Same thing. I didn't bring my coupler to try and back flush it, unfortunately. Usually I do. I forgot it at the house, so I couldn't back flush it. So it still worked. It just took a lot longer to push through the filter.
Yeah, there's just a lot of sediment, I think, between pulling out of the pond and pulling out of the trail. And, the filters are great for what they do, but, when you're trying to filter really dirty water, I don't think we were ever at a risk for having a problem. There was, 5 of us and 5 filters. So, somebody would have been able to produce water if we needed to.
Right. So, but, all right, Peter, so we are at time right now, but like just to wrap this up. So for the Redliners, there's about 110, 120 people that have completed this. It looks like every year there's somewhere between maybe 6 to 10 people that get their name put on the list. So you'll be one of the class of 2025. What do you need to do to send in your recognition for completing this? Do you have to fill out an application, or how does that work?
I fill out a form and send it into Hiker Ed.
That's it, and then he'll review it, and then you'll get on the list.
Yep.
It's the same. I was going to say same organization that does the grid, right? It's the same site and stuff.
Well, it's the same site, but I don't think it's the same body that the same people that does it. Yeah,
Gotcha. That was just my curiosity.
Yeah, I don't know who it feels like different people manage different components of the lists and things like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well, Peter, congratulations.
Thanks.
Jake, congratulations for being the assistant to the main Redline creator. Maybe you'll be the
an honorable mention.
Maybe someday you'll finish your 4,000 footers and get inspired to do the Redline as well. But we'll see how it goes. But thank you so much for having us on your journey, Peter. It was an honor to finish with you, and we'll definitely have you guys back on in the future. And you're my go-to guy for obscure trails and also sending across frozen rivers to make sure that they're not going to break.
Appreciate that, Mike. No, thank you for having me on.
Right. So Nick, we're gonna exit out of this, and we're gonna listen to the latest release of Hard Sun by Stomp Machine, and what you give the right credits here.
We'll say Stomp, Nick, and Evie.
Okay. All right. We'll take it away with Hard Sun.
All right.
When I walk beside her, I am a better man. When I go to leave her, I always stagger back again. Once I built an ivory tower so I could worship from above. When I climbed down to be set free, she took me in again. There's a big heart, son, feeding all the big people. Ooh. hard world. When she comes to greet me, she is mercy at my feet. Yeah, when I see her pin her charm, she just throws it back at me. Once I dug an early grave to find a better land. She just smiled and laughed at me and took the blues back again. There's a big heart, son, beating all the big people in a big hard world. There's a big heart, son, beating all the big people in a big hard world. When I go to cross that river, she is comfort by my side. When I try to understand, she just opens up her hands. Once I stood to lose her when I saw what I had done. Bound down and threw away the hours of her garden and her son. So I tried to warn her, I turned to see her weep. 40 days and 40 nights, and it's still coming down on me. There's a big heart, son, beating all the big people in a big hard world. There's a big heart, son, beating all the big people in a big hard world. Yeah, there's a big heart, son, beating all the big people in a big hard world. There's a big heart, son, beating all the big people in a big hard world. Yeah, there's a big heart, son, beating all the big people in a big hard world. Oh, it's a big heart, son, beating all the big people in a big hard world. There's a big heart, son, beating all the big people in a big hard world.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to learn more about the topics covered in today's show, please check out the show notes and safety information at SLASRPodcast.com. That's SLASR podcast.com. You can also follow the show on Facebook and Instagram. We hope you'll join us next week for another great show. Until then, on behalf of Mike and Stomp, get out there and crush some mega peaks.
Now covered in scratches, blisters, and bug bites, Chris Staff wanted to complete his most challenging day hike ever.
Fish and Game officers say the hiker from Florida activated an emergency beacon yesterday morning. He was hiking along the Appalachian Trail when the weather started to get worse. Officials say the snow was piled up to 3 feet in some spots, and there was a wind chill of -1 degree.
And there's 3 words to describe this race. Do we all know what they are? Only one hill!
Here's Lieutenant James Nealon, New Hampshire Fish and Game. Lieutenant, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
What are some of the most common mistakes you see people make when they're heading out on the trails to hike here in New Hampshire?
It seems to me the most common is being unprepared, and I think if they just simply visited hikesafe.com and got a list of the 10 essential items and had those in their packs, they probably would have no need to ever call us at all.